Hey, fun fans, no Matitude Eric here, just Matt, talking to you about Mission Impossible. Previously, Eric and I did a Mission Impossible franchise recap for you all the way through Fallout. And so we've smushed those together for you, compiled them all into two parts. The first three will be here. Second three, you can follow how it goes, will be on the second part. Ahead of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which opens next week. So if you're doing a franchise rewatch, like Eric is probably doing, before the new movie, or if you just want to go back and listen to us talk about the movies again for little tidbits and refreshers, go for it. And so please enjoy the first three Mission Impossibles. I did, and I only found Brian De Palma. Okay, here we go. Mission Impossible. Okay, Mission Impossible.
Spoilers follow for 1996's Mission Impossible.
1996, middle of the 90s. With a lot of 90s tech and a lot of 90s internet.
The internet.
Directed by Brian De Palma, and most interestingly, a lot of interesting stuff behind the scenes. We won't get into all of it, obviously, about this movie. This is the first movie, I believe, Tom Cruise ever had a producer role on. Mm-hmm. And he, as we've known for all of his movies since, he is very hands-on.
Yes.
Super hands-on, not just as the star. He's not the director, obviously, but with the writing, with the story, with the stunts, with just everything. Like, he took like a couple train masters out to dinner so that he could get certain like locations shooting for the train sequence at the end. Like, he is hands-on, full on board. And also the fact that this movie kind of started without a full shooting script. Like, a lot of stuff, like a lot of action sequences and set pieces were developed ahead of the story, and then they kind of had to fit them into the story that later came.
Which I will say, because this is, I didn't know nearly as much about this movie as I do about the recent ones, but it was fascinating to learn that right from the start, this series was like that, because this is almost the entire series is like this, as far as we don't have a finished script, we just know these are the big cool things that are going to happen, we'll figure it out. And it just goes to show, I mean, it's just funny, because this came up recently with Rise of Skywalker and more talk about, they were rewriting it on set and the things changing. And yes, I realize there's more to Rise of Skywalker as the end of a 9-part saga, yada, yada. But it does go to my thing about a lot of huge movies are made that way. And you're not mad when you like how it turns out in the end.
Yeah, when it's bad, you're like, oh, this is because they didn't have a shooting script for most of the movie. But when it's good, it's like, oh wow, they made all that up on the spot. You don't really talk about it, but yeah, a lot of movies have this type of development, this type of pre-production, this type of production. But the Mission Impossible ones,
tentpole movies, because there's such trains, no pun intended, with Mission Impossible. There's such these giant beasts that have to hit these like release dates, and so often it's just like, it's up and running, we have to do this.
And but the Mission Impossible ones have been some of the most successful at doing that and coming out with a really great finished product.
Yeah.
This movie was really good. I liked the movie. I remember liking it when I saw it. It's an interesting film in the fact that it is kind of an action scene with most of the action saved for the very last sequence. But it's also a mystery. It's also a heist movie. It's a bunch of different genres mixed together, and it's directed by Brian De Palma, who very lauded, long. He had a big career in the 70s and 80s. He directed his biggest movies would be like Scarface, and what else? Oh, The Untouchables.
And Carrie, I'd say.
Snake Eyes was sort of a fun Nicolas Cage movie he did during Nicolas Cage's 90s heyday. But in that movie, very much spotlights some of the stylistic elements of how Brian De Palma directs. Brian De Palma is super influenced by Hitchcock. So if you know anything about Hitchcock and the way that Hitchcock uses the camera in a very mechanical, knowing, story-driven way, that like, Hitchcock is not there as a director to be unseen as a director.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you see things in that movie that, like, make you feel the camera, make you feel like, oh, this is a made movie, a finished product that I am watching, and I am not, it takes you out of the movie, but purposely so.
Yes, it's showy, and I think sometimes that extends to the with De Palma in general, I'm saying here, to the tone, and there's kind of a heightened nature to a lot of his stuff that, again, that's his thing,
Yeah, so he is not there to be invisible as a director and just let the scenes breathe on their own. That's not how Brian De Palma works. Anyway, He was chosen to direct this movie. Tom Cruise, first-time producer, super hands-on, delved into this. And it also based on like we said at the top of the episode, very successful, popular, long-running pop culture phenomenon, a Mission Impossible TV show.
Which again, Paramount owned. So, and Cruise's deal was at Paramount, and Cruise was a big fan. So they'd already been trying to make a movie for a while off and on, but Cruise got it going just because he loved the show, and now he's got a deal at Paramount, and they're like, oh, they own it. Let's do this.
And so I'm going to skip to a little bit of the end here. I'll just reveal the twist. We're already in full spoilers. So the idea is that the character who is the main character for the Mission Impossible shows, the long-running one and then the short 80s revamp, was Peter Graves playing Jim Phelps. And Jim Phelps wasn't the point man. He wasn't the Ethan Hunt, but he was the team leader. He was the Danny Ocean who would also go out on the missions. So it wasn't like he was the guy in the room just telling everyone what to do. He was the leader, but he was also the guy. He would participate in all the missions. So the point is, he was the hero of the series.
Yeah.
And the movie made him the villain. The movie, he is played by John Voight, and he is the switchback. He is the turncoat who killed off his whole team and framed Ethan for their murder because he faked his own death too. Yes. And originally, the rumors are that Peter Graves was offered the role to reprise his character of Jim Phelps for the movie and turned it down because he didn't want that character to be a traitor. And that not just Peter Graves, but other cast members from that show, one is said to have walked out of the screening because they made Jim Phelps a bad guy.
And Martin Landau talked about it because a lot of stars were on Mission Impossible. Martin Landau was on it. Leonard Nimoy. The idea was the entire opening at one point was going to be the old TV show team all getting killed. Right. It was like, let's bring them all back. Let's get Martin Landau. Let's get all of them to be there and then die. Yeah,
they didn't like that. I don't know. Sounds like a good idea to me. They just they kind of seem like a bunch of grumpy pants, a bunch of fucking sourpusses, especially. And I remember this from the time. I remember Martin Landau being kind of, I get his point, but he didn't have to be so unkind. Like it was like, I think it was a red carpet for the premiere in front of the Man Westwood. Mm-hmm. And some young entertainment reporter wasn't aware it was a TV show. And he just let her have it, this poor girl. And he's like, you should do your research. Shame on you. But I'm like, really? Just be nice. Like, hey, you know what? You're young. You're not my generation. It was a very successful TV show. And that's why I'm here,
Right.
But he was a dick.
I will say the thing about Mission Impossible that is interesting, it's very easy to make analogy to or connection to Star Trek because they're both Paramount-owned properties that in the 60s were TV series and now have been revived as movies. But I'd say Mission Impossible was interesting in that, I don't know about you, Matt, I never saw it growing up.
No, I didn't watch it. And like you, I probably just knew the theme.
And yeah, that's the thing. I was going to say that, because we've talked about how, we grew up, especially in, growing up in the 80s, you still had that thing of like everyone saw the same TV shows, including the old ones that have been gone for decades because they all played in syndication. So original Star Trek, Batman, I was seeing these shows even though, I was not born when they were airing. Mission Impossible just didn't have that life in syndication. I'm not saying it wasn't out there somewhere. It just wasn't as prevalent because I'm sure I would have watched it if it had been in front of me because like we said, we watched everything as kids. But yeah, so knew the theme song, knew the basic, it was a spy show. But I think that's just my point being that when they made this movie, it wasn't like Star Trek in that Star Trek had just stuck around so much in pop culture by the time they started doing the movies. Mission Impossible hadn't to the same degree. So I remember, yes, there were fans upset. Oh my God, because they're basically saying the Captain Kirk of this is a traitor, is a bad guy. It just wasn't as prevalent because Mission Impossible didn't have as strong a passionate fan base to get as angry as if they did.
It wasn't that loud a roar because the fan base was smaller and it was. And so, and also it was, I think, even who knows? I don't know if Jim Phelps was as revered as Captain Kirk. I feel like he wasn't, but who knows?
No,
Who
no,
am I
no.
to say? By the 80s, I knew the theme because I believe probably it was in commercials at that point.
Probably.
And they
Yeah.
would say, they even probably had the your mission should you choose to accept it, like bullshit, like in some like commercial for shopping or a cleaning product or who knows, you know?
Yeah.
But we
But
knew the theme.
it's an all-time great theme. It's like one of the best themes ever.
Especially when Limp Bizkit does it. Anyway.
Well, yeah. Well, hey, don't get ahead of ourselves.
I know that's next podcast. Danny Elfman
Yes.
did the score here. Did the reworking orchestral score for Mission Impossible, and you know just the score throughout the movie. You can hear a lot of very notable Elfman cues through some of the heist moments.
And the before Limp Bizkit, Larry Mullen and Adam Clayton, aka the other guys from U2, they did the closing credit. Like here's our like music video pop version that we're going to release single of the theme.
Okay, let's get into the film. The film, like I said at the top, I enjoy the film. I think it's definitely not what the movies are now necessarily because they're super, you know, the budgets are bigger, the stunts are bigger. It did sort of set up the first, I don't know if it was the first time Tom Cruise notably did his own stunt, but I was reading about that whole fish tank explosion scene and that De Palma, because it didn't look right with the stunt guy, asked Tom Cruise to do it, and he did it, and like if the rest is history, and now Tom Cruise won't do it, will not let anyone do his stunts for him. So,
Right.
And especially on Mission Impossible movies, in which you know he's known for that now of being the guy on the side of the building or hanging from the helicopter or doing a halo jump. So the movie starts with the bit of the film. What do you call it? The preamble, the prelude before the opening credits. Is really weird. Cold open is really weird, Eric, in the sense that the one thing they never figured out story-wise in this movie, and whether it wound up on the cutting room floor or they just couldn't get their shit sorted, was the Claire character. And the cold open opens with they're bamboozling some Russian informant, and the big moment is like it's Tom Cruise in a mask playing an old Russian mobster, and he pulls off the mask, and it's like we got it, or I don't know. No, that's not when he says that. Anyway,
no, it is because that's the cut to titles. That's the
the cut to titles is him waking Claire up because we think she's some dead prostitute.
Yeah, but that is when he says we got it.
No. My point is the cut should have happened when he pulled the mask off.
Right.
But it lingers longer, and he slowly wakes up Claire as if it's supposed to be a huge revelation, and it's like she's like, "Did we get it?" He's like, "We got it," and then it hits cut. It's such a weird, low key moment to cut to those high energy credits to when it should have been the mask pull off.
Yeah,
and it makes you wonder too at that moment if that's his wife or girlfriend.
And I will say that yes, they did cut stuff because the original opening was longer. It was basically going to much more establish a flirtation between them and a potential love triangle. I don't know. It might never have had a good cut to those high energy credits, but the scene was going to go on longer. It was going to have banter between them, sexy banter back and forth, but then end on her wedding ring. Then the credits, and then they still come out on a close-up of Phelps's wedding ring. So that was supposed to be your connective tissue.
Okay.
Was setting up this love triangle that did kind of get mostly pushed to the wayside. There was some other stuff cut.
I don't mean to carp too much on a movie I like here, but it just was it's an awkward open.
Because you're making a very good observation because I just listened to the editor talk about. By the way, I want to give a early shout out to, because I'm going to be referencing them so much, and sometimes I'll forget to reference them. The Light the Fuse podcast, which is the only Mission Impossible movie podcast. Well, they talk about TV show too.
Until now.
So, they're a great podcast, and they have had long, in-depth interviews with many of the people involved: Macquarie, Brad Bird, Ron Moore, and they did a big interview with Paul Hirsch, who edited this movie and Ghost Protocol. And so that's where I got that fact, and I'm sure I'll be getting other facts. And like I said, sometimes I'll forget to mention them, but they're great. If you like these movies, you should listen to the Light the Fuse podcast.
We go into the opening credits, high energy, fun music, montage of the team before you meet the team, and kind of that weird thing where the setting up the precedent of lightly and gently spoiling some moments from the film in the opening credits.
Yeah, it's I've forgotten how much I was into this movie when I first saw it. I saw it many times actually. And again, that's I do see movies I like many times, but those opening credits I thought were the coolest thing. Now, what I didn't realize is they were taking an idea from the TV show, which would show scenes from the that episode in a way that not be too spoilery. But if you go back and look, you can kind of be like, oh. But I just thought that was so cool. The sort of trailer, the opening credits are almost a trailer for the movie in a really cool, fun, exciting way, playing that great theme.
Yeah, and it's not going to spoil anything that you didn't see in the trailer.
Right.
Now, just in the context of opening credits. Okay, so then we basically come into our team. Jim Phelps is on a plane, so we meet Jim Phelps, not played by Peter Graves, played by Jon Voight, still a famous actor.
Yep.
Now somebody who's kind of garbage as a person. But anyway,
Sure.
problematic, and Baby Genius's star, Jon
Yes.
Voight, is on a plane. We get the
Strange Angelina Jolie father.
we get the should you your mission should you choose to accept it scene, and he gets his mission. He's assembled his team, and the voice played by Henry what's it, Zerzy? What's his name?
I
Zernay.
never know.
Who plays Kitteridge. It's his voice on the tape. He's running Jim through the mission, and he's also introducing us to the team in a very expository way, as far as like, here's your hacker, here's your point person, here's your femme fatale or whatever. Mm-hmm. So then we get the mission, the meeting. They're going to an embassy. It's all about trying to recover half of, or the full, I can't remember, of the knock list. Mm-hmm. Which is actually something, I don't know if this was the first movie to use it, but man, a lot of movies used it after this. The knock list became the secret list of the names of covert agents abroad, has been used as a MacGuffin, to use Hitchcock terms, in many spy films going forward. It was maybe in a Kingsman film, I can't even remember. It's been a lot of other movies. This was the first time I remember it being in a film, as far as the thing they got to get. Because if they get it, then the enemy will have the names of all the secret agents and can kill them. So then we get, the team. They're fun. It's another movie. And look, I don't say this as a way to criticize, but Tom Cruise movies, 95% of them are Tom Cruise is a cocky asshole who gets humbled and becomes a better person. And that's this movie. It's just
a skilled cocky asshole.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's cocky because he's skilled.
Yes.
I don't care if you're talking about A Few Good Men or Edge of Tomorrow or anything. He is just, or War of the Worlds. That's his. He knows his bread and butter, and that's what he gives you on the screen. So unless you're talking about, even a Magnolia, you could argue that too. But I'm saying like where his Oscar-nominated performance.
Tropic Thunder.
So Tropic Thunder is the only time.
Right.
That's the 5%. So he. He's cracking jokes. He's like, "Oh, your wife makes terrible coffee."
and they're doing a lot of heavy lifting here because they're going to kill the team. They want to establish this is a team. They go way back, and we have to buy in briefly to Ethan's just one of the gang because it's a Tom Cruise movie. He's going to be the lead, but in this moment, they just want him sitting next to Emilio at the table, just getting orders,
And Emilio Estevez, who I don't know why he stopped being in things or doing things, but he did. It was a choice, I'm assuming. Yeah. So he's the hacker guy. He's one of the team that gets killed, Jack. But also he's got sort of a will they, won't they, or maybe they're already a couple thing going on with Kristen Scott Thomas's Sarah. They're flirting, and then they were supposed to have a date later on. I don't know. Ethan at one point is even like, your date with Sarah's canceled or something. Anyway. Kristen Scott Thomas, obviously very famous, especially after The English Patient.
Which would open later that year, and she got an Oscar nomination, so a big year for her, yeah.
And
Emilio Estevez is, a calculated casting because he was a big star. So it's like, a lot of people were very surprised and upset. I had people tweeting me about it this weekend as I was saying I was watching the movie. I was so upset when Emilio died right away because I specifically tweeted, hasta lasagna, don't get any Anya, which is his big his catchphrase apparently. But yeah, he was a big star who had worked with Cruise on The Outsiders, so there was a fun little connection there. And so they want people, and they cast very good actors like Kristen Scott Thomas. It's like to sell the idea that maybe they'll be in this whole movie, before they take them all.
And then I can't pronounce her name. Ingabora Dapukanethe as Hannah. I don't know her. And then Emmanuel Bert as Claire. So then this is when we learn, and it's said out loud if you didn't get any of the wedding ring stuff, but it's said out loud that Claire is Jim's wife.
Yes.
And there's a 25 years age difference, but
which is never mentioned, although I guess you can still say that's, would lead to some issues.
Yes. And and then they go off to do their thing. They've got we're in the middle of mid-90s technology, so these glasses have a video camera, and when you're tracking someone, they are a blip on a Pac-Man screen, and just the tech of the time. And they go through this whole thing to get anyway. There's an ambush. Ethan is led to believe as they go through the streets of Prague that somebody's onto them and is killing them off. And he thinks Jim has been killed because Jim puts on his video camera glasses. And you see a gun and he's dead. And then Sarah gets stabbed. First, Jack gets killed in an elevator with a malfunction of the elevator car.
It's a fairly graphic for a PG-13 summer adventure movie.
It cuts away quick enough.
It cuts away right then, but it's graphic enough to show you what's happening. Yeah.
And then, assumedly, Claire and Hannah get blown up in the car. We would later learn it was just Hannah. Mm-hmm. Do you think Claire blew it up in the way Ethan's imagining later, or no?
It still seems.
The thing is, the Claire character, I can't figure out if she was such a full party to it, or how much of a turncoat she was, or if it was, even though the movie tries really hard to imply that maybe she slept with Ethan during off screen.
Which was on screen. I was gonna say that for later, but you're bringing it up now. That was also cut. They had a love scene.
There's a point when Jim reveals that he's still alive, that he says to Ethan I can't imagine what she would have had to do to survive.
Right.
To get close to you, she must have been heartbroken thinking I was dead. Basically assuming, he's making the assumption, even if it didn't happen in this multiverse version of the movie where that scene got cut, that Claire slept with him probably to seduce him and to make Ethan believed that she was on his side.
Right.
But then in the end, it's it looks like he doesn't even accidentally shoot her at the end. It looks like he purposely shoots her. So Claire is the thing that they really didn't figure out in this movie, where she was as far as Jim's plan, how much in love they were as a couple, and were they ride or die, or did they never trust each other, or how that worked. And was she the one who pushed the button that blew up the car with Hannah in it, or was Jim the one who did it? Because he imagined both scenarios. Mm-hmm. And again, because they left a lot of stuff out, and they just had a scene where they left the scene in where they almost kiss, but then they kept in the scene where she kisses his hand when he returns to the apartment, and then it fades to black. And I'm assuming that's maybe where, I don't know, maybe it was earlier. So Tom Cruise is shaken. Ethan Hunt, he doesn't know what to do. His team's been killed. He makes contact with Eugene Kitteridge, who is a very fun part of this movie as the sort of the not the main antagonist, but
antagonist.
But he's also a red herring.
Yes.
Claire's a red herring. He's a red herring. As far as he learns, Ethan Hunt learns that there was this whole operation was a sham because they were searching for a mole. Now they think he's the mole. He's been framed. He blows up the cafe to escape. And very famously, the Kitteridge, "You've never seen me very upset," was from the trailer.
Yeah. Yes, that was a big trailer line. And then, like you mentioned, look, by where this series will go, it is such a small thing, even though, of course, if you or I were asked to do it, it would be a big deal. But yes, Cruise, that's, really Cruise in almost every shot of the aquarium exploding, and a notable, at the time especially, very notable that this big movie star was going to do this stunt himself live with, all this water being poured down behind him and needed to jump out of the way and run forward. So that got some attention. It just didn't get as much attention because he wasn't actually you could die very easily like it would become in later movies. You could be hurt though.
And throughout this, especially the opening mission scene, we get a lot of Brian De Palma camera movement and sort of split screens that aren't quite split screens, like when it moves from the hallway, slides into the elevator shaft next door. That's a lot of stuff you'll see in Snake Eyes, which that movie has a very famous I don't know how long the oneer is in the
Yeah.
beginning of Snake Eyes, but it was probably the longest at the time that was done. It was very, very elaborate. Nicolas Cage walking through Atlantic City Casino from a boxing match to the floor, like one shot. But that movie also does the thing where it like takes you through different hotel rooms by, I think, through a bird's eye view, where like it just goes room to room to room. So you get some of that here.
And like I was gonna say that like the scene at the restaurant, it's a really fun scene, and it's a very heightened scene. And again, like you said, the purposely conspicuous camera work, like it's shooting them from underneath, gets more and more intense. Also, I think Cruise, who I think is a good actor, is giving a very heightened performance in this movie, which I'm guessing is what De Palma wanted him to do. As he's like, him and Kittredge having this back and forth. Kittredge has a great, ridiculous line, which is, "You want to shake hands with the devil? That's fine with me. I just want to make sure you do it in hell." Which is an amazing line that I want to say to someone. But that's a very De Palma scene, yeah.
De Palma.
I didn't mean to say that.
No, it's good.
No,
it works. Then, then Tom Cruise is, he escapes. He makes it back to some sort of safe house or someplace where they can't find it.
He uses the internet.
And he figures out that Job 316 is Job 316, but then he goes on to some server. I don't know, but my favorite part is when he
away from Google. Yeah.
But but I think it was also like within the IMF, even though they should be able to track him if he logs in there. But anyway, he literally searches Max.com, which was very funny to me.
No, it's true. No, you have to keep in mind. I was thinking about it because, the thing that dates this movie the most is like the internet stuff, I'd say. And it was funny because you look back. This movie came out in '96, but it was filmed in '95. '95, this is the year the net comes out, Hackers comes out. So it's like this thing in Hollywood where they're like, okay, the internet is this big new thing. It's important. It's going to change things, but no one really understands how it works. So you get a lot of movies that are super funny to look back on, getting it wrong. This movie isn't about the internet in the way those others I mentioned did, but it factors in, and it's hysterical. Max.com. And then the fact that the email address he sends to is Max at, they got that part right, but then Job space 3:14, which would never be a functioning email address.
Oh man, I'd see if I can claim that address if nobody's claimed it.
Well, you can claim it. You just won't be able to actually send anything from it.
That's all right. I don't need it to work. Do you think Crash Override and Zero Cool from Hackers knew about the Net Ranger?
Yeah, I would. Yes, I definitely knew about
AKA Luther Strickle.
Yes.
Played by Ving Rhames, actor who benefited greatly from Pulp Fiction. It sort of brought his career to the forefront. He was in a ton of movies throughout the 90s, yeah.
This movie, that's the other thing about this movie being filmed in 95 is, like, you are getting a lot of hot off 94 action in this movie. So the double reveal of Ving Rhames and Jean Reno, who both had huge 94s because Jean Reno was in The Professional in 94 and Ving Rhames was in Pulp Fiction 94. The opening credits, by the way, were designed by Kyle Cooper, who's done a million movies opening credits, but Seven came out in 94 and got him so much hype.
Seven did not come out in 94, Eric.
Was it 95?
It was when I was at NYU, so it was not in 94.
Either way, I just know he was 95. People who were hired off of things they had just done that were like mega hot at the time.
Also, he wasn't just the Net Ranger. He was known as Phineas Freak.
Yes, he was.
Which reminds me of Freddy Freaker. 1-900-490-FREAK. Freddy Freaker!
We should, and then, we kind of skipped over as we were talking about Jean Reno and Ving Rhames. Of course, they have the reveal of Max. It's a woman, played by Vanessa Redgrave, who's really good and has kind of a fun, almost flirtatious thing with Ethan, which I think is fair. If there's a male character married to someone 25 years younger, why not have a female character flirting with someone 25 years younger? Also, by the way, what is up with that cool, amazingly creepy mask they put Ethan in when they take him to Max?
I don't know, but
it looks like it's like a Venom like S&M mask.
We haven't even really talked about the masks in this movie, and that within this technology, within the infancy of internet, and a lot of things that feel really dated, was included, and this is part of the heightened nature of it, these masks that are comically amazing. To the point where,
which is a TV show. It's part of the TV show, so it's like, okay, we have to have the masks. Yeah.
But the first two times Ethan is in a mask, because in the end he pulls off a Jim Phelps mask and is John Voight.
But the first two times Tom Cruise.
The first two times is Tom Cruise playing a character in old age makeup. Even so much like when we see the actual footage of the senator or whoever the politician he's playing on TV, that's supposed to be the real guy, but it's Tom Cruise playing him.
And did you see who did the makeup effects on this movie?
Rob Bottin.
Yeah, who almost Rob Bottin, I think you pronounce it, but yeah,
Bottin?
who almost directed Freddy vs. Jason.
Yes.
So it all connects.
And did a lot of practical effects on, like Total Recall and a bunch of cool things.
The Thing, most famous.
The Thing. That movie's practical effects.
Right.
So, also it should be noted that for years now, for some reason, but not enough reason that you'd care about, Eric and I say, Ving Rhames, do your thing. Because
let's not reveal the source.
Oh, let's not reveal the source?
No, we can reveal the source. Reveal the source.
It comes from the Thing Ring. Thing Ring, do your thing.
The Thing, go on YouTube and search for Thing animated series. Has in Fantastic Four. The Thing.
Yeah, not the John Carpenter movie animated series.
A very strange, let's take a character, but let's change most everything about him. There was a Thing animated series in the 70s about Benji Grimm, a teenager who could transform into the Thing, kind of Shazam-y.
Yeah.
But he had a
Which is
a
like
ring.
De Palmy.
Right. He had a ring, and he would say, Thing Ring, do your thing, to transform into the Thing.
Yes, and so that's where Ving Rhames do your thing comes from.
For some stupid reason, but it's worked for 25 years. I don't see why it can't work.
It was a weird whisper campaign for us to get Ving Rhames to play Ben Grimm.
Right.
Okay, so he hooks up with these disavowed spies. We've got
in a scene. I want to say, by the way, that so like I said, I kind of watching it this time. I was thinking about, wow, I saw this movie a lot, and I also remember this was a big hit. That was a very well-received, like, summer movie at the time. And I remember seeing this movie opening night, and they do that cool sort of double reveal. Like, they hard cut to Ving Rhames sitting, looking all awesome with sunglasses. Then you pan, and you see Jean Reno is sitting next to him. So it's meant to be like, hey, look at this guy you like for something else, and he's with someone else you like for something else. And I remember everyone cheered, L.A., very vocal crowds. Everyone cheered, and then one guy yelled out, the badasses. Yes.
Yeah, Luther and Krieger, I believe Jean Reno is known as. And these are his teams along with Claire. And then the movie switches into a Ocean's 11 before Ocean's 11 style. I mean, I know Ocean's 11 was a remake, but this really did feel like a bit of a precursor to what Ocean's 11 was, because Ethan runs down the score. Like, he's like, we got to get through this vault. This is the security system. We're doing this while the camera shows us the rooms. Yes. Like, while it's showing us inside Langley in Virginia,
very fun. I mean, Ethan's line is very fun. Relax, Luther. It's much worse than you think. And then going into how impossible this mission's going to be.
It's so impossible. And they have to steal the real knock list from this server, this computer in the middle of this room that has a temperature alarm, a sensor alarm on the floor, and a noise alarm. Which I didn't see Spy Hard, but if there wasn't a fart joke in there when Leslie Nielsen was emulating this scene, then I don't know what to do.
No noises. Oh,
yeah,
gotta be right.
Got it. This is aside from the train scene, this is the most famous scene from this movie. Heavily parodied.
This is the most famous.
Yeah. Heavily parodied, heavily emulated too in other movies. Mm-hmm. Just a really well done suspense scene, not a high action scene. They fake their way in to Langley playing fireman. Claire decides to go super inconspicuous by wearing a bright red dress and being like, I felt like that wasn't the right way to be inconspicuous. But anyway, not a dress, but like a business suit. So, and then she poisons the dude who monitors the computer with some liquid that gives him the shits and the pukes. Mm-hmm. And enter Tom Cruise. And those wires being held, and this is, I don't think a lot of people remember this from the movie, is being held by Jean Reno. Yes. Like, that's the thing. It's like he's not on some like contraption. He's being literally held by the meaty arms of French superstar Jean Reno.
Which in real life, because I watched all the special features, and it was fun to see, which are fun because they're mostly like 1996 EPK with 1996 graphics. But it was fun to see that again. Cruise really did all this as far as like something that most stars wouldn't, as far as suspended in this way up above, and they're lowering him down. In real life, it was two guys holding on pulleys.
Yeah, not just the might of Jean Reno.
Right.
I would even gather that neither one of them was Jean Reno, Eric.
Neither one of them was
two different people.
Yes.
And there's a moment where Jean Reno slips. I forget. There's a rat on him. I can't remember, but he slips and Ethan almost touches the ground. And that is Tom Cruise doing the full locust pose. If you do yoga, like lifting his legs and his arms and like his head trying not to touch the ground. And
it's a great sequence. It really is a great sequence that it stands the test of time. It also especially when you think about it being like a big summer movie. It's almost 10 minutes long with no dialogue, no score, just making sure it's a very tense, cool sequence, and it all draws you in. There's lots of great moments, like he catches his own sweat to stop it. I'd forgotten, and I actually did a gasp, which was funny for a movie I've watched many times. I forgot where Krieger drops the knife for the oh no, like right at the end.
And it lands on the table.
Lands on the table.
Well, then the knife would be important because that's when he realized that he's the one who stabbed Sarah. That was the knife he found, or a version of the knife that he found on the scene.
He's a knife.
All right. Won't get too much into the thing here, but they get the novel.
I do think it's funny, by the way, because Kittredge is a fun character. He is a total dick. Because I thought it was funny that when he learns about the necklace being stolen, his punishment for Donlow, which is the CIA guy who got poisoned and had a terrible day running in the bathroom, that poor guy, Kittredge says, I want him manning a radar tower in Alaska by the end of the day. So I want him to come back. I want Donlow to come back and see if it's revenge.
Or like a team. No, or just the team has to go to the outpost in Alaska for something in the next movie, and Donlow's there. He's never been relieved of duty. He also has the thing in him. So
yes, all ties together.
I think it's hilarious too, talking about what an asshole Kittredge is, and why at the end of the movie, Tom Cruise really doesn't want to have anything more to do with the IMF because you kind of get it, because they're horrible people. When he frames his mother for being a drug dealer,
mother and uncle, yeah,
mother and uncle, and they get dragged out of their homes in handcuffs and on the national news, and to the point where it's like, at the end, like Luther was like. Says that they got a full apology and the VIP treatment, but it's like their lives are still ruined, right? Like, I don't think that undoes the days of shame and fear and terror that they experienced.
Yeah.
And all just because, and he's like, all because Kittredge is like, this will draw him out.
Right.
All right, so. Max is untrustworthy. Kittredge is untrustworthy. Jim returns. And he's like, hey, I'm alive, but good for Ethan where he doesn't buy into it at all.
I think that's great.
So it's a great scene because Jim is acting as if Ethan believes him. Jim thinks he's fooled Ethan, but the whole time we're seeing inside Ethan's head. And it's really cool because he's piecing together now that I know who did this, let me go back and figure out how it happened. So
and it's a really good scene because, it's like you're having him be a smart protagonist who's figuring it out, and he actually, because later on at the end of the movie, Jim goes, "When did you know?" And he says it was before, which because he finds the Bible, he sees the Drake Hotel, and I even like that beat where he says to Claire, "Well, we do what we have to," in a way that implies he's already suspicious of her at that point. So it's like, he's it's a cool way to show your hero kind of figuring things out.
Yeah. Again, like I said, they didn't really figure out Claire really well for this film, or what she was supposed to be, or what her motivations were outside of either of those guys.
Right.
Just there to be the kind of the hot chick. So then he arranges a meeting with everyone. He's got Kittredge. He routes Kittredge to this train. Max is supposed to be there, and she's supposed to bring Job, but Ethan already knows that Job is going to be Jim, so much so that he puts the Jim mask on. He puts a Jim Phelps mask on to fool Claire in the baggage car. It all comes together in a big, very fun. And we've talked also on this podcast, just talking about movies, about how effects can be dated. And there are some elements of this train sequence that do feel, obviously, it's from 96. ILM's doing the effects. It's just going to feel dated with some of the computer stuff. but it still, most of it still really works well. Like they're still using real wind machines on Tom Cruise's face. You know, there's still, when he gets out on top of that train, I was expecting like, oh, this is going to look like hot trash. It did not. It looked great.
It looks great. Yes, if they did it today, it would look better. If they did it today, Cruise would probably...
It would be on a real train. It would be on a real bullet train,
a train that's moving. It is a real train, but obviously a train that is actually going 200 miles per hour. But back then, they had a train with a wind machine, and yes, everything you just said, like yes, you can see some of the effects because it's, you know, it's been almost 25 years, but very well done, well created scene, and the wind machine stuff is great. Also, it's great because Ethan, and we'll talk about this more as we progress, you know, Ethan is pretty much, especially as movies progress, he turns into like a superhero as far as like being like Batman-like and the things he's doing. But I do think they do the best they can, and including in this first movie of, for the most part, maybe 2 doesn't do this, but certainly most of the movies, that they give him enough little moments where he doesn't seem like just like invulnerable, and I just like that when he goes out on that train, because it's like they want to show that this is a train moving so quick that a person can't just walk out on it. So Jim's using like freaking like suction pads, but for Ethan, he's just whipped around. He's just like barely hanging on. Yeah. And I just like that because it doesn't show him as just so badass he can just walk out there and storm towards Jim. He has to like basically let himself be thrown at Jim to even get to him.
Yeah, he like uses the wind to like travel back quickly, to fast travel to the end of the train. Really well done scene. Also, if we're talking about surprisingly graphic, even though they cut away death for Emilio Estevez's Jack, like Jim gets like thrashed on the bottom of the tracks when he was hanging onto that helicopter too. Like before the explosion happens with the helicopter, his body gets like dragged on the tracks. So I was like, ooh, that's, you know, fittingly gruesome. I liked it. And we haven't talked about the gum, which was, there are a lot of gadgets in this movies, but as far as like the James Bond Deus Ex Machina, like save your ass at the 11th hour gadget, they definitely borrow from the Bond films here. I can't speak to the TV series if they use that as well, but James Bond was very much like gadgets introduced in the beginning will save Bond's ass in the villain at the end.
Yes.
Not always, but it happened enough times that it became a bit of a cliche, and they did that here. But they had him use it. I think they had him use it too much, like almost like the gum, because he used it to escape the cafe in Prague, and then he used it again. And I guess that, like, I don't know, it's not a long movie, so I don't know. Oh, is it? How long is it? Didn't feel long.
It's not that long. The later ones get much longer. This one's like hour 40 maybe.
The part of me just wishes he didn't use it in the cafe.
I agree.
And I wish he just pulled it out at the end.
The end, the red light, green light, that's a great beat. So it is a little funny that he used, it's like just his regular weapon.
Like if he had something else that could have blown up that fish tank in the cafe.
Right.
That would have been good.
I agree. But yeah, it's a nice payoff, even though they already did it once before. It's also funny because, look, like, especially with the first couple movies, it's like people are like, look, Ethan is not a extremely deep character here. And it's funny because they don't even really have him talk. Like, he's supposed to be like buddies with the team, but he doesn't seem like, he's not like he's like, Jack, no, like Emilio Estevez is supposed to be like his buddy. But I'm like, well, that's his tribute to Jack. Red light, green light.
Yeah.
There you go.
So the movie ends with him seemingly quitting the IMF and going off, but then he gets the Luther is reinstated as a full member of IMF or CIA or whoever. I think IMF is part of CIA. I don't remember. But
in this movie, it seems
I know, but they cross pollinate throughout their other movies.
But the later movies would kind of separate it out a little more.
So, but then he gets the your mission should you choose to accept it bit on the plane, and it cuts away before we know if he accepts the mission or not. Right. I don't know if you can refuse the mission. Can you not accept it? It's like, nah. That's never been answered in a Mission Impossible movie, where it's like, can you? The tape is going to dissolve. Hey, oh, by the way, it was interesting to me. I like back. Obviously, you could smoke. Could you even smoke on planes in '96 or '5?
Maybe international. I think in America by then, no.
Yeah. But when the message for Jim self-destructs and just basically dissolves into smoke, he covers that smoke by smoking a cigarette, like so that no one else on that plane will know that he's about to do an impossible mission. All right. Well, that was a good first opening chat for Mission Impossible. Very entertaining film.
Yeah, and I think this first movie holds yes, this is a series that will evolve and will become like my favorite action movie series eventually. But I think this first movie really holds up. It's different than what it's a very different vibe than what will follow.
Yeah, we'll see that when Abrams sort of resurrects, basically goes back to the roots of the first movie, but gives it a much more heightened action movie spin in Mission Impossible 3. That's really what kicked off what the movies are now. There's going to be a big stylistic difference heading into 2, but the first two movies are the most different.
Yes, and quality difference on 2. It's a fun movie. De Palma was an interesting choice because it's not like he had done like a lot of blockbusters, even though he'd done, I guess The Untouchables would be the closest thing, and even that's still not quite the scale this is. So it was an interesting choice, and it worked. I think it's his biggest hit, which would make sense. And then I'll throw out a couple other behind-the-scenes tidbits, which is just so just a couple of things behind the scenes here, which is just that some big, well-respected people that were fired off this movie. Which again, this was a movie that kind of got pieced together and became very successful and well-received for the most part. But first of all, the original editor of this movie, Gerald B. Greenberg, had worked with De Palma on a bunch of stuff. Acclaimed editor. They brought on Paul Hirsch to edit with him. Paul Hirsch also worked with De Palma a bunch, but he also edited Star Wars and Empire and Ferris Bueller. The reason they had two editors was because they were racing to release this movie Christmas '95. That wouldn't happen. It would come out May '96. But Greenberg got fired off the movie. And it's weird. Hirsch, basically on the interview I listened to on The Fuse, said that he was working on the Prague sequence first, and he had kind of reused some shots that made, people were like, wait, what? You... by accident, like he had the same shots twice. Don't know what was going on there, but he got fired. The other big person got fired off this movie was the original composer, which is Alan Silvestri, who is probably best known for Back to the Future, but
very famous guy. Composer,
now for Avengers, of course. He did all the Avengers movies except Age of Ultron, and he did the original score. And basically, him and De Palma had been they didn't consult while he was working on it. Like he basically was like, "Oh, I love you, you're great. Go do your score and then come back." And when he played it, De Palma hated it, and so that got thrown out.
Apparently, that decision was made by Tom Cruise during post. So
they said Tom Cruise was in the room. Hirsch said that when Silvestri played his score, it was Cruise and De Palma hearing it for the first time, but neither of them liked it. So
because it was going, Tom Cruise is bad. Tom Cruise is bad, and he's like, guys, we can't have this.
Elfman, it was funny that not he was hired and he had to do the score very quickly. But I do like hearing how he got hired, which is that of course we think of Elfman of Batman and he's in Beetlejuice and these a lot of superhero scores. But what got him hired on this was Dead Presidents, because when you're editing something, you use temp track because you don't have score, so you use just other existing music in the interim. And there was a long sequence, I can't remember which one, that used Dead President's score, and everyone said, "God, that works so well with it. Who did this score?" And it was Danny Elfman, and that got him hired. And then he had to work very quickly. This time, De Palma was there. After this one.
Okay. Speaking of two things you just mentioned, Dead Presidents, AEW had an excellent parking lot brawl between Best Friends and Santana and Ortiz on this past Wednesday on Dynamite. It was the main event of the show, and Santana and Ortiz came out with Dead President's makeup on, which was it was an emulated look for a little while after Dead Presidents came out. Secondly, speaking of, you were saying like it's interesting how Elfman got hired. I would love to, after all of our Sasha Banks Mandalorian talk at the beginning, I want whoever does the interview with her, or if she ever does press rounds where people ask her about Mandalorian about this, I want to know how that happened. I want to know how the casting happened, how Sasha wound up in the Star Wars show.
Oh, 100%. And trust me, Matt, I'm trying to ask that question myself, so we'll see if I can.
All right, because I'm basically saying like was it a producer that liked her, or was it the director of that particular episode, or was it like weird happenstance, and they're just like, hey, look at the picture of this person, what's wrestling? I don't know. Like, was somebody a huge wrestling fan, or did it come about in a much different way?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very curious about that too, especially because I've talked to Filoni a million times. I'm like, he's not a secret wrestling fan, I don't think, but we'll see.
I mean, that's the secret part, though.
Right. The last thing I want to say about this movie, just because again, it was well received, it was a big hit. But the two things that kind of were controversial, I put that in air quotes, was Jim Phillips being killed, but also the big rap around this movie at the time was it was so confusing. Audiences couldn't follow it. And at the time,
really?
I thought that was silly. And I found the articles. LA Times, EW had these articles. Can anyone understand what's happening? And they asked Paul Hirsch about that in that interview, and his funny reasoning was, well, I think it's because Twister opened 3 weeks before, and that was so dumb that our movie seemed too complex by
I mean, he has a point, but this was not a hard movie to follow. Unless you're wondering what Claire's up to, that's not a hard movie to follow.
It's not a hard movie to follow. I just don't think it's it just seemed like a weird, like, underselling the audience at the time.
Was everyone in the audience at the time our parents?
I don't know. It was a very, because one of the articles was even talking to teenagers, but it was just a strange thing. The only thing they said, it was funny in the interview, and I do agree that the sound mixing needed to be better. When Cruz says this was all a mole hunt in the aquarium scene, you can't quite understand that he's saying mole hunt unless you listen very carefully. But I can't see that one word. People not being able to understand that one word, did that ruin the entire movie for them?
I thought he said this was a Helen Hunt. Because, she was really big in the 90s, too. So plus the Twister just came out.
So I never understood the it's too confusing thing. And especially looking back 24 years later, that seems ridiculous.
It seems like a very cut and dry movie. It seems like almost the opposite of complex.
I mean, I guess...
purposely so. You know what I mean?
It's like you have to follow it enough to be like, they're gonna steal the thing that they didn't really steal, like the knock list. The fact that the knock list, because yes, Kittredge says we never lost the knock list. It was a fake out to draw out a mole, and now Ethan's like, well then I'm gonna really
slow down, Eric. I didn't understand any of that.
And then Ethan's saying, well then I'm gonna really steal the knock list. Yes, you have to pay attention, but it's not like I can't pay attention. Like you can follow what's happening.
All I know is that there was gum, and
there was gum,
and Billy the Kid, and then he died. And then,
brought to you by Big Gum. All right, we're gonna watch a tough one next week, but it's the only time I have to say that for this podcast.
But also one that we were all the more tough by the fact that we were super excited. Our expectations for it, yeah.
We'll talk all about Heartbreak and Mission Impossible 2 next week.
All right, let's get into Mission Impossible Part 2.
Sure.
Because we've already talked for about 50 minutes here. Look, we had a pay-per-view to discuss and other things. But let's talk about Mission Impossible 2, as we already mentioned at the top of the episode, 4 years later. And still produced by, is it Tom Cruise and Paula Wagner?
Yep.
And he's still super hands-on, and this is his baby. And the first one did well. And it was weird to wait so long for a second one. But when Eric and I heard that John Woo was directing the Mission Impossible 2, we fell off our beanbag chairs.
right.
Because it was super duper news. Probably read it in the trades. Maybe on the internet at that point. Ain't It Cool was around, so who knows. Yeah. But John Woo, interesting career in that super popular, ultra-violent Hong Kong director known for a very, very specific style of movie, known for something that has been referred to as gung fu, because of the way he uses guns and the way he choreographs a lot of his gunfights as martial arts, as a dance in a very certain neo-noir way. Use of slow motion, the use of doves, there's so many things that are hallmarks of John Woo. Then when he arrived in America, he still found success. The thing, he's coming off of some successful movies.
Especially Face Off. That was a big
Face Off was huge. It was the one he did right before this in 97. Yeah. Well, yeah. It came out in 97. So in Hong Kong, he was known for the Two Better Tomorrow films, especially working with Chow Yun-fat, who was also a big deal. When he came over, didn't have he didn't get off on the right foot with American audiences as much with like The Replacement Killers. It took a while for Chow Yun-fat to find. In fact, he probably never really found a huge audience in America, except for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Right.
Wasn't he in the King and I remake?
I believe he was, yes.
Okay, so then John Woo's known for the Better Tomorrow films, The Killer, which was a huge one, Hard Boiled, Once a Thief, Bullet in the Head. These were his big ones. If you've seen movies where there's two guys facing each other with guns and they just unload into each other and fill each other's torsos with bullets, but then also both still survive somehow.
Yeah.
That's, you're probably watching The Killer. Actually, it wasn't. No. What movie was somebody watching The Killer in the background? Was it True Romance?
Oh, shit. I don't remember.
I think it's True Romance. I think Alabama's watching it on TV at one point.
It's very possible. But yeah, it's an influence that's still, like, when you see in that Suicide Squad footage they debuted at DC Fandom, like an overhead shot of Harley Quinn twirling around holding two guns with both her arms outstretched shooting. It's like, that's a John Woo influence, you know?
So some of the first movies that hit America that used John Woo, two guns. That's it. John Woo, two guns,
and
firing
also
at the same time. Sliding, running with guns. The Crow. One of the reasons why The Crow was made such an impact on American audiences, not just because of for many reasons, and many things that go into The Crow. One of them was the fact that the certain action sequence in that movie when Eric Draven uses guns against like a whole syndicate of crime lords gathered in one room, he's using two guns in a very John Woo way, and a lot of American movies didn't have that at that point. Right. I think maybe one or two at that point dabbled with it, but it wasn't a common thing. But John Woo is...
I'd say another big one that made an impact that had a huge influence from John Woo was Desperado.
For sure. Desperado.
Yeah, did a lot of that Woo-esque action in that.
Okay, so then in America, John Woo did Hard Target, which is by default because of that, one of Van Damme's best movies.
And he became... he started the trend of, if you're a hot Hong Kong director, you do a Van Damme movie as your entry point. That became a thing after that.
Yeah, Van Damme is the toll into America. Then he did another hard movie called Hard Target, which was a very enjoyable romp with...
Wait, we just mentioned Hard Target.
Sorry, Broken Arrow.
Yes.
I feel like I got my hards wrong because he went from Hard Boiled, which is an amazingly violent movie.
Breaking America, yeah.
Which everyone should see Hard Boiled.
And Hard Boiled also is his easiest, and we'll get into his style and things that make him that are just culturally different. But Hard Boiled is the easiest one to tell a random person, check this out, because it's a pure action movie. It's like it's just a cop action movie, and his other ones. Not to say the other ones are bad because they have different elements. We'll just get into cultural differences that make them a little more difficult sometimes. But Hard Boiled is just you just want to see freaking awesome shootouts? Check out Hard Boiled.
And also check out Hard Boiled if you want to see how kind of unawesome the shootouts are, by comparison, in Mission Impossible 2.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of his American movies didn't quite match up to what he was delivering on the Hong Kong front. Also, Hard Boiled, for the last third of the movie, it's like Die Hard in a hospital.
Yes.
Last third, last half, I don't know. It's a large chunk of the movie is Die Hard in a hospital.
Last third, yeah.
Then he did Broken Arrow with Christian Slater and John Travolta. Then he'd work with John Travolta again, very famously in Face Off with Nicolas Cage, which was a big hit. Then he's on to Mission Impossible 2. You know, he's on fire, this guy. He's going to direct Mission Impossible 2. Very different director than Brian De Palma. Very different. Because of that, Mission Impossible 2 is a very different movie. Eric, you're more of a Mission Impossible head than I am. How frequently does Ethan Hunt use guns?
Well, that's the thing. In the first movie, he never fires a gun.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Like it's very easy to look at the first movie and be like, yeah, he never had a shootout in the first movie.
I think the only time he even holds a gun in the first one is when he is all paranoid. It ends up being Claire reveals she's alive,
right?
And he has a gun in the safe house. And
then
she shows
she's
up.
He's like, thank God it's you, Claire, because I didn't know how to use this thing.
Right. But he never fires a gun. It's not part of Ethan Hunt's repertoire in the first one that he's great with guns.
And then we go into the second movie where he fires all the guns. The second half, the second hour of the movie is him firing guns.
Yes.
But I'm asking, since then, it's still not a big thing for him.
Since then, I think he's used it more in a he's used it. Like he's fired a gun since, but in no way has it been like Mission Impossible 2 where he is like acrobatic gunsman. Like, yeah, it exists in a world unto itself. I guess it introduced that he will fire a gun, and that stuck around. But yeah, and only the second one exists in a world where he is just like that kind of gunfighter.
All right, I don't know where to completely start with Mission Impossible 2, except
the only thing I'll say, we'll say more behind the scenes stuff after, but I'll just say the 4-year thing. We'll say it didn't affect the box office wise because it was huge. It was a bigger hit than the first one, but also it wasn't supposed to be 4 years. The biggest reason it was 4 years was because Eyes Wide Shut took so long to shoot.
And that was just Tom Cruise walking in and out of that front door.
right.
You heard about that where like Kubrick made him take like 50 takes of walking into a room.
300 takes of that. So the biggest reason it took 4 years was Stanley Kubrick.
Which is fine. We give Kubrick his on his final film. What would be his final film? Mission Impossible 2 has some interesting elements. It's not wholly bad. Again, as Eric said, this made a shit ton of money. It was actually the highest grossing movie of 2000. It's made a lot of money.
In America, by the way, the highest grossing Mission Impossible movie until Fallout. It was the biggest hit until just 2 years ago.
Oh, wow, just 2 years ago. Okay. Yeah, this was a big hit. Critically, not so much, but that didn't seem to affect the movie. As I watch it back, I haven't actually seen this movie that many times because I didn't like it all that much when I first saw it. And I don't remember if I got flack for that or if everyone was on the same page as me, but I came out of that movie being like, eh.
I think mostly, even though it was one of those things where it was kind of like a Transformers movie in that a lot of people were clearly going to see it, so it's not like you felt like everyone must hate it out there. But I think that among our friends, among people you talk to, it was mostly disappointment. And just quickly that my story of I had a big seeing it disappointment thing in that, like you said, Matt, we were so hyped up for it. We're so like, John Woo doing a Mission Impossible movie. This sounds awesome. And then I got to go to the premiere of this movie because our friend Adam won premiere tickets on K-Rock, couldn't go, gave them to me, and I took our oft-mentioned friend Brent, and we were so excited, and then we came out of the movie very disappointed. But I did pee next to Alexis Denisof from Angel, and that was exciting, in the Chinese theater bathroom.
And you're that's funny, you don't pee British. And he's like, because I'm not British. And you're like, what? That's not quite as good as me peeing next to Fred Schneider, but it's up there.
But just to say that, going in so hyped, getting to go to the premiere, so it was like everything was set for me to be so, this movie rules, and then walking out being like, oh.
I think it was more of a disappointment for people who had watched John Woo movies before.
Yes.
Like the non-American John Woo movies. Everyone else would be like, hey, this is freaking cool. I've never seen anything like this. Like broader audiences would probably be like, yeah, I've never seen. I think what I really wanted from it was less slow-mo. There's so much slow-mo in this movie. I know that's a thing with John Woo, but like he would balance the slow-mo with very quick stuff with guns too.
Yeah.
Like you would just get these rapid-fire scenes where people would shoot each other really quickly and dance around and like shoot each other, like aim at each other through like walls and glass and shoot. This was all slow-mo, and his takedowns were all slow-mo too. It was like watching an Arkham game. It was like watching when you do a special combo with Batman and then you take someone down with that final cutscene slow-mo, and that's what a lot of this movie is. And also, like a lot of kicks, like capoeira kicks and flip kicks that just seem unnecessary. Like he has to run up to someone and do a backflip kick.
Knock them out.
Just knock them out. So anyway, Mission Impossible 2 opens with a scene on a plane. Well, it opens very sort of haughtily with the scientist talking about, we needed a hero, we created a monster. This actor dude who you've seen in a million things.
Yeah. You look at his credits and it's, he's in everything.
Yeah, you look at IMDb, it just says, look, it's a million things. You don't need to scroll.
But honestly, seemingly cast, because the first movie did the silly thing that the TV show did, which is just having Cruise play both roles. Like the first movie, they have like the talk show and it's like Cruise playing the guy he's going to double. In this one, I noticed they very purposely cast an actor who had a similar profile to Tom Cruise.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, like so especially in the scene when he's talking to Brendan Gleeson, you're like, yeah, he's very Tom Cruise-like. This movie uses masks a lot.
A lot.
And the opening scene, it starts right out of the gate with this guy seeking asylum, and he wants to, or like not asylum, but he's seeking escort to the CDC in Atlanta. We don't know it at the time, but he has injected himself. I mean, you can figure it out. He's like 20 hours from now. This movie also repeats a lot of things, and I don't know if it's a John Woo thing or a fact that like everyone was like, nobody could follow the first movie because people are idiots. So there's a lot of things repeated. 20 hours. Yeah, we get it. You've said 20 hours a million times. Left pocket. The envelope's in my left pocket. Whoops, you put it in the right pocket. You know, yeah. They go out of their way to sort of idiot-proof this movie. And again, like I said, I don't know if that's where that stems from.
I thought that was reaction.
So this movie opens with this scientist getting bamboozled on an airplane by who he thinks is Dimitri, who is Ethan Hunt undercover as sort of one of his aliases. And it turns out to be evil IMF agent Sean Ambrose, played by Doug Ray Scott, who was apparently up for Wolverine or couldn't audition for Wolverine because of this movie.
He was cast as Wolverine. It's like a famous thing.
Yeah.
He was supposed to go right from this to he was cast as Wolverine, and it's only because this movie went over schedule that Hugh Jackman became Wolverine.
And Hugh Jackman, much better than Doug Ray Scott.
I mean, Doug Ray Scott is a good actor, but Hugh Jackman has the charisma he has that he pops.
Which one is the greatest showman, Eric?
And exactly.
Which one invented show business?
If Doug Ray Scott had played Wolverine, there would not have been nearly as many movies with Wolverine in it. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. We assume. Doug Ray Scott. So the funny thing about then he and his cronies. One played by Tom Cruise's cousin, William Mapplethorpe, who you recognize because he looks like he's got a very distinct face. He's been in a ton of things.
He is the first, but certainly not the last of the Lost cast members to be in this series. He predates J.J. Abrams joining this series, but yeah, most people know him as Ethan, coincidentally, from Lost.
Yeah, and a lot of things. You'd recognize him in everything. He's been in a ton of movies. Again, Million Things guy, Tom Cruise cousin, William Mapplethorpe, and then, maybe more importantly, Richard Roxburgh.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Dominic Purcell. But yes.
Well, there's Dominic Purcell. They use some Australian actors in this, and he's Australian because most of this movie takes place in Australia.
Yep.
Then Richard Roxburgh, though, Eric... What do you mean he's not more famous than Dominic Purcell? He was Dracula in Van Helsing. Yes. He's the Dracula, the ridiculous Dracula, who's like, I have no heart. He was also on the long-running Australian series Rake, which was remade for America, starring Greg Kinnear, and only lasted one season.
I remember that.
Remember Rake?
Yeah. I kind of remember it.
I think it was on Fox.
Yeah.
Anyway... This guy gets killed on the plane, then the whole plane gets killed as they escape with what they think is a virus, but turns out to just be the antidote to the virus. Mm-hmm. This guy, Sean Ambrose and Ethan Hunt, apparently have a history that we never see or really hear about all that much. It would have been cooler to hear about that. Yeah,
it's just weird because they're doing very quickly. They're doing a go-to. Bond has done it, but a lot of issues, which is the rogue agent. Like Ambrose was an IMF agent. They also very clearly wanted to be the bad guy as a parallel to the good guy. So he was an IMF agent. He used to double Ethan as part of missions. They're both in love with the same woman. It's obviously supposed to be like he's my dark shadow. But because we never really get into their history or what makes them tick, you don't really feel.
Yeah,
they know they pitched in a meeting. Oh, it's like he's a dark Ethan, and they have this history, but it's not really there.
The trouble is that GoldenEye, which is Pierce Brosnan's best film and probably maybe only good Bond film, really, but that very successfully uses an ex-00 agent as the villain.
Yes.
But it starts with a flashback scene.
Yes.
It starts with a flashback scene between Bond and Alec Trevelyan, I believe, Sean Bean's character, where he supposedly dies and they're together and so forth. And so we don't get any of that here. But all we get, though, Eric... feeds into the first movie, is like the IMF are terrible. Like Ethan Hunt, seemingly, and Luther, maybe now that he's back in the game, are the only good. Well, Billy too. We'll talk about Billy, but like, are the only good agents in this outfit. Like everyone else is so sleazy and shitty, And Ethan knows his bosses are terrible. Like Anthony Hopkins, we'll talk about him too. He's sort of pops in for a cameo, but also with like, he has shitty ideas about what women should do to get information and be forced to do. And he seems to be upset at the end when Ethan has destroyed all the virus, or, because IMF really wanted that. And so he knows that IMF, especially after Kitteridge and everything he did, he knows he's working for like terrible people. Like he saves the world, but it's sort of the Burke from Aliens scenario where it's like, we want to stop these aliens, but we also want to save one and take it back.
Yeah, because we also want to use this.
We also want to profit off this, and so it's like America would love to have the virus. Like Ethan, if you could possibly make that happen, sorry, just very quickly, feeding into that is the fact that somehow Sean Ambrose was allowed to be an IMF agent, even though he's terrible. And we're literally watching. He's not an ex-agent until this first scene. This is the scene when he decides to just betray the IMF completely. Yeah, and it's not for a lot of... Look, it's not for... again, we're talking $2,000, but he's doing it all for $37 million. Doesn't seem like that much.
Yeah. I was just going to say that, and as I don't like to, with me when we do these things, I'm like, I don't want to spoil ahead on the movies. But I will say this. The one funny thing to me is, you're right, it seems like pretty terrible, but it is funny that this is the only movie, which is also the weakest Mission Impossible movie, I believe it's the only movie where Ethan is never being accused or thought to have turned on the IMF.
Or he has to go off the grid to hide from his own organization.
He's just working for the shitty people, and it's never questioned.
That is, if there is a critique to be leveled against the Mission Impossible series, is that
they go to that every time.
They think Ethan is a traitor.
Yes,
and they're very bad at that.
This time they know he's
if he's not a traitor in one of the next two movies, just because he's like, you guys have thought I was a traitor for so many years, I just decided to turn. Maybe that's why Ambrose turned. He was constantly being accused of being a traitor, and he's like, you know what? I might as well just take the money and run. I'm out of here. I will say that I'm looking at my notes. We don't have to. It's a weird movie that's very plotting in some points and kind of tough to get through. I wrote here, I wrote down 48 minutes in, and it's kind of boring.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I also wrote that for the first hour of this movie, Thandie Newton is the star of the movie. Mm-hmm. She feels like the main character in a way. She feels like the person who's being recruited by these shitty spies to do terrible things and have to actually use her body and give up, sleep with, and Anthony Hopkins' character. I don't even know his name.
I will give you his name. His name is damn it, I had it. Oh, there, yeah. Swanbeck.
That sounds like an Anthony Hopkins character.
Sure.
He's like, just have her fuck her old boyfriend. What's the big deal? And I'm like, ugh, this is terrible. At least Ethan feels bad about it.
Right.
Or does he? I don't know. But I think he feels more bad about it because he's like, oh, I thought she was my girlfriend. But this movie has a very shitty way of treating its woman as far as her agency. In fact, the only real thing, she does ultimately make the choice herself. It's not like they blackmail her or anything. She makes the choice to go back to Sean, who we learned she just left 6 months earlier. I thought it was, going into the movie, I thought it was a few years ago, but then we learned it was only 6 months. But then her big active agency in the movie came during the lab raid when she injects herself with the virus. That was the big, oh, she's actually taking control and doing something and feels like more of an active character. But Thandie Newton is great in this movie. This wasn't her coming out party. She had been in a lot of things before this.
A lot of other things, but this is going to be the first time a huge worldwide audience is introduced to her in this big way. Yeah.
You, of course, know her from Westworld these days on TV.
With Swanbeck, Anthony Hopkins.
Yes, it's the Mission Impossible 2 reunion.
Yes.
That we've always... They didn't film any scenes together for this movie, but, I'm sure they hung out, drank Diet Coke.
He just said crappy things about her character.
Yes. Also, Thandie Newton known for giving a very recent interview about her experiences on the set of this film with Tom Cruise, which you can talk about at the end if you want to, Eric. But it was not her first time working with Tom Cruise because she was in an interview with a vampire.
Yeah, yeah. Only thing I'll say about that interview is I just thought it was one of those things where it got very sensationalized. Like it was like Dan Newton dunks on Tom Cruise, but it seemed more to be just like he was really intense, and it was just more like it seemed like to be like more humanizing him than like being like, oh, screw that guy. As you just said, it was there was some tense moments, but it didn't sound like it. I don't know, the way that people headline that made it sound way worse than it was, because she will open, she's a very candid interview. So if she wanted to tear apart Tom Cruise, I think she could have, but she did not.
Before this, she had been in Jefferson in Paris as Sally Hemings, and she was in Jonathan Demme's Beloved.
As Beloved.
Jonathan Demme, it's just notable because Jonathan Demme ultimately didn't wind up making that many. For who he was coming off of Silence of the Lambs, he didn't make a lot of movies.
Right.
After Silence of the Lambs in Philadelphia, it was kind of like, I can do whatever movie I want. He did work with Thandie Newton again because he did Truth About Charlie after this, where he cast her in the Audrey Hepburn role, which makes a lot of sense, way more than him casting Mark Wahlberg in the Cary Grant role. But yeah, so
yes.
Okay, so this movie. Okay, so the first 25 minutes of this movie. Oh, okay. Let's talk about the rock climbing. Sorry, it's just like the rock climbing is notable.
The rock climbing is the thing that got the most attention.
It's weird because it's obviously, if we talk about the first movie and we talk about the Langley heist and the wires and stuff, that's the standout from that movie. For this movie, aside from maybe the motorcycle stuff at the end, it's the rock climbing at the beginning.
Yep.
And the fact that Tom Cruise wanted to do it himself, and this is again what Brian De Palma asked him to do in the first movie. Now Tom Cruise is addicted to doing his own stunts.
I think he always wanted to. It's just now he's
a producer. He's a producer though. Now he's a producer.
Yeah.
So he can do it.
He really did the rock climbing. No net. Yes, he had a safety harness. But they were shocked at how much he wanted to do, which was all of it, and that got a lot of press. Like, hey, the opening of this movie, when you see Ethan Hunt doing this rock climbing, that really is all Tom Cruise.
And he was very adamant about doing that scene as a reintroduction to Ethan Hunt. He's like, this is the best way that I can even think about introducing Ethan Hunt reintroducing people to the character of Ethan Hunt. He should be doing this really intense rock climbing. It gives you an idea of where he is at now as an action star,
Mm-hmm. Also, this movie has a few interesting moments of a little bit of Tom Cruise meta moments. One is Ambrose saying how I hated doubling you because I'd have to have that stupid grin every 15 minutes.
Is the other one the Aiko Aiko song?
Aiko Aiko, which most people will know from especially in the year 2000. Rain Man, the song Aiko Aiko goes back to the 50s, but was popularized in modern times by its significant use in Rain Man. So to have Ethan Hunt introduced to this song, very identified with another hit Tom Cruise movie, was just a funny, weird kind of winking thing in this movie.
I am very upset that Limp Bizkit didn't do the cover of Aiko Aiko.
Right. It would have been nice.
He's on vacation and he's rock climbing. It is impressive. It's fun. It's fun to watch. It's a good introduction. Things are cooler now. We're now in the year 2000, Eric, and so his mission comes in the form of some cool sunglasses. And there's this rock version of the Mission Impossible theme where it's these guitar licks.
And look. Again, this is a super stylized John Woo movie. I love him throwing the sunglasses at the camera as they explode. As much as I'm angry that they did not keep the flashing through the whole movie motif.
Well, it seems like a much more violent way for the message to self-destruct than the little poof of smoke from the first movie.
Because it could blow your face off.
Because if you got stuck on your hair or something and you blow your head off. Yeah. Then it goes to... we don't meet Anthony Hopkins yet, but we hear his voice. And then he has to recruit this thief who is the ex-girlfriend of Sean Ambrose. And he goes to Spain. This is the only other real location, country location of the movie, where he recruits Thandie Newton's Naya in a very James Bondy way. This is Ethan Hunt being, in a way we hadn't really... he flirted with Claire. Maybe there was an edict where it's okay, we couldn't figure out the Claire character in the first movie. He needs to have a love interest. He needs to have somebody in the final frame of the movie before we hit the credits to kiss, or to, what does he say at the end of the movie? Let's get lost, or something. Like, he's got to have that girl. He's got to have a gal on his arm. And in a very James Bond way, sort of courts her playfully, antagonistically, the way Bond would sort of toy with someone. So much so that they even have that flirtatious race down the mountainside in cars that I always laugh at, because I even think of GoldenEye when I think of this with, Famke Janssen's character, Pierce Brosnan, does this as well, where they dangerously race down the side of a mountain. I was like, what if she just crashes and kills herself?
Right.
And he's like, I guess I shouldn't have been.
I mean, we should say, this movie, ground up, is obviously built around this romance. It's also, many people noted, basically is ripping off Hitchcock's Notorious, story-wise. But also, even though it was already being built around like this romance and this character, John Woo, like when he came in, was like really into that. Like, I want like an action adventure that's also a romance. So it leaned even more into that. And that car scene, by the way, like that was a John Woo inclusion, because he's like, there was another boring talking scene. I thought we should build a romance through the car. Which again, it's like this weird thing, because I'm like, man, this movie wants you to put so much weight into this romance. Like, it's like really plays it like this is the love of his life, but they barely speak. Like, there's barely anything there. But I know what was going for, because he directly says it, is like, that scene's, it's like, because they're dancing. They're dancing with the cars.
Yeah, that's everything with John Woo, is they're dancing. They're dancing with the birds, with the guns, with the cars,
right.
with the scarf. One of my favorite moments of this movie that I'm not shitting on it, but it also doesn't not make me laugh.
Right.
Which is when she walks up to Sean after he's rescued her from fake prison, and like she's coming to see him after having left him. She's got that scarf and the wind is blowing, and like the scarf blows off her neck, but Sean, cat-like reflexes, reaches out, catches it, and it, like when he catches it in slow motion, there's that guitar lick, it goes, very John Woo moment.
The score, by the way, this time is Hans Zimmer, who obviously has become even much bigger since, especially with the Dark Knight stuff, but had already worked with Woo on Broken Arrow with one of his best scores.
Yeah, the Broken Arrow score, very memorable. Mm-hmm. But the car dance works because they fuck immediately afterwards. Like, they just start kissing in the car. Yeah, so she's like, I'm all in. And then, but this is before she knows that he is a spy who wants her to go back to her old boyfriend and sleep with him.
I guess let me pause here to say, like, just because we're talking about like the courtship, and a lot of the courtship just plays super cheesy. Like, again,
but that's part of. I get that, but it's also part of Woo.
It is part of Woo. That's why I want to talk about it, sort of the cultural thing. Like even when Ethan and her see each other across the way, and the woman's like dancing, and it's like the dancing woman's skirt in slow mo as they look at each other, and it's like, this is important. If you watch his Hong Kong movies, yes, there is. I say the word cheesy, and I realize again cultural differences and things like melodrama, things that like just play differently to different audiences. And I think when you watch a movie that's in a different language, you give it a lot of leniency on that, because you understand, like, hey, this is just not made for me, and so this is just stylistically the way they go. And then look at this awesome action, which it doesn't matter where you're from, you're just going to connect to. And then I think Woo, his first American movies, almost were helped by working with someone as goofy as Van Damme, and then someone as heightened as Travolta, and then Travolta and
Nicolas Cage, yeah,
which is like crazy heightened, and it all worked for like the melodrama aspect. I think you kind of went with it. Mission Impossible 2 is a lot harder because Cruise is not that kind of actor, and this movie's not that kind of movie, and so it's just like it's asking, it's going into this heavy melodrama, and again, quote unquote cheesy stuff that plays, at least to me, with my Western ways, as cheesy, and it's a lot without that kind of goofy center to it.
There's just a lot that's like obvious and on the nose and ham-fisted about it that we kind of enjoy a little more subtlety. For an example, like we open in Face Off with John Travolta's son being killed. And it's very heavy-handed and but we're also like, okay, it's his son, and it's sort of the crux of this movie and his character at the beginning and where he is mentally, and we forgive that. The beginning of this movie is the scientist leaving his lab and walking out, sees the kids doing something kids don't do. Even like, we're still going back 20 years, there were no kids singing "Ring Around the Rosie," which is a plague song. You know,
Right.
"Ring Around the Rosie" is about the bubonic plague. A, no kids are doing that. B, it's a song. It's a little nursery rhyme that's super on the nose about an outbreak of plague. So, like that, I'm already sort of half rolling my eyes at. It's not like, because it's a little, it's less meaningful than the death of someone's son, but it's like
Right.
he walks out and sees innocence.
Yes.
He walks out and
Because of that black and white, and yeah.
he's like, these are the people who will die if this plague gets out. All right. So where'd we leave off? Okay, so then we're doing Anthony Hopkins now, and he comes in, sex and Anthony Hopkins, and after he has, it is, and that's the other thing that's shitty about Anthony Hopkins. He's just like, recruit her. So Tom Cruise does what he thinks he's supposed to do, which is, I guess, sleep with her, because Anthony Hopkins doesn't tell him the mission.
Right.
He's like, okay, now that you've got her, here's what I need her to do. If he had told Tom Cruise everything he needed from her right out of the gate, I think Ethan would have, I say Tom Cruise and Ethan Hunt interchangeably, by the way.
Sure.
I think that he would have not tried to seduce her in such a way. You know what I mean? He would have handled the recruitment of Naya differently if he knew what he wanted to ask Naya to do.
Well, yeah, you could have played it, because I think no matter what, we're supposed to think he's so drawn to her. He's, let's just go with the movie and say he falls in love with her, love at first sight. But if he knows from the beginning, part of this mission is we need her to go back to her ex-boyfriend and probably sleep with him, then you can play it from the beginning as oh no, I'm in love with her, but I'm supposed to send her on this mission.
But that's the thing, is it's another example of the IMF being jerkwads, because they didn't tell Ethan what he needed to know.
Right.
Or they just keep him in the dark and they only tell him the bare minimum of what he needs to know for security measures. But that's a shitty thing to do, because when Anthony Hopkins tells him the full scale of what the operation is, Tom Cruise is surprised and shocked and upset.
Right.
But then Anthony Hopkins gets two trailer lines, which was the ugly-ish to lie with a man, to lay with a man and lie to him. What more does a woman need? I'm paraphrasing.
It was, yeah. It's like to sleep with a man and lie to him. Just that's what they all do.
He's like, women, am I right? They be shopping.
Oh no, here it is. To go to bed with a man and to lie to him, she's a woman. She's got all the training she needs.
Anyway.
Which, by the way, in the behind the scenes, Robert Towne, who we haven't talked about, and we should talk about briefly later, says. He does say, I guess, to his weird mixed credit in the year 2000, that what an un-PC line that is. So he was aware that was.
I wish Swanbeck would have been like, Ethan, I'm going through a separation right now, and I'm in a sort of a shady, sour place mentally, and I apologize. But so if I apologize for that misogynistic comment, and that was out of line. But he gets the second trailer line too. They really milk the Anthony Hopkins. 2-minute scene, which is he's like, well, it's not called, this isn't Mission Difficult, this is Mission Impossible, which is a fun line. I like it. That's also another meta line, kind of.
Yeah, because I think it's the only time in the entire series the words Mission Impossible are said. Again, the IMF is Impossible Mission Force, but the words Mission Impossible, the title, have a character say the title, I think only happens in this movie. And who better to say it than Hopkins?
Yeah, a character who never returns.
Sure.
As far as we know, what's coming up? I don't know.
Again, yeah, the revolving door of the IMF bosses begins here, because Kittredge is not seen nor mentioned.
And also begins the revolving door of Ethan Hawke teammates. Luther's back, and Luther would remain a constant, but there's a lot of other people who fade in and out that we wish would have stuck around a little longer, or which come back at some point in the next two movies to add to the continuity.
I in general, I agree with you, but not so much with Billy.
Billy was fine. I thought he did his job well, and he was pleasant.
He was so unmemorable. Every time I watch this movie again...
Oh, he's totally unmemorable, because I didn't remember he was in the movie. I was like, who's this?
I'm not saying I didn't actively dislike him. I just think, again, something the later movies will try to correct is, yes, these are always going to be centered around Tom Cruise, but the first two especially are they really don't care about any team dynamic. They kind of give it lip service, but especially in the second one, it's like they bring back Luther. Okay, he's like the constant, he's his buddy, But then they have Billy, who Billy's entrance is a really weird one because he's like, I'm gonna look around, like he laughs for no reason when he says he's gonna look around this like safe house. But after that,
I thought it was funny. I don't know why you're such a stick in the mud. I don't know why you're so down on Billy. Look, Billy is very versatile. First of all, Billy's their pilot for choppering around Australia. I guess because he's in Australia, he's like, Swanbeck didn't say this, but he's like, you get to pick 2 recruits. And he's like, well, Luther, obviously. He's like, the second one, you have to choose an Australian agent. It's part of working in Australia.
It's like when you film a movie in Canada. And
you have to have a certain percentage of people be Canadian.
IMF has similar rules.
Yeah, you had to pick Billy. So he's their pilot, which comes into play at the end. They do need a helicopter. But he also does scene work. He does, he's a guy on the ground. He's at the racetrack undercover. Yeah. Doesn't do much to disguise himself.
Boring character. Like they don't. I mean, the fact is they don't care. Like,
why are you so down on Billy?
Fuck Billy.
Oh my God. I'm saying that Billy is. I think Billy might be the unsung hero of this. First of all, Billy got to survive. I remembered so little about Billy that I didn't remember if he gets killed or not. It was very surprising to see that he makes it to the end. And he's
Ethan doesn't go Billy.
No, but like he cares about Billy more than he cares about Hostile Lasagna. Yeah.
Yes.
I know his name's Jack, but his name is Hostile Lasagna. Actually, I really wish like if he went undercover as an Italian agent, like it's like, hi, I'm Hostile Lasagna.
I'm worried about us running out of time because I have about 25 minutes left. But so I want to mention the other thing is that because in this movie, again, it's so different from the first one. It's so different stylistically, and there's nothing directly to connect it to the first except for Luther's existence alongside Ethan.
Yeah, Ethan even looks different. He's got the long hair.
Yeah, he seems like a different character. The only thing they use Ambrose as this funny to speak things, A to B, the meta thing with the Tom Cruise with the grin, but also it's like they do this big callback to Langley where he has to break in again, where he has to descend down, and they even have him like stop at the ground at like a little visual callback. And they do try to make that a thing because they have Ambrose talk about how he prefers misdirection to confrontation. He'll enter from above. And there'll be acrobatic insanity. So they kind of want to quickly be like, hey, you know how he did that stuff in the first one? That's his thing.
Another almost meta moment. Yeah, and it is more of an extreme version of the rope dangle from the first movie. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And which basically, over an hour into this movie, I don't even know how long, an hour and 20 minutes almost, I think, before we get the big, this is a 2-hour movie. 2 hour?
2 hours, 4 minutes, I think.
Yeah. And we're getting the first big action movie. Again, for John Woo, so makes us wait almost, basically an hour and 20 minutes before we get John Woo's biggest calling card. Not that we hadn't seen a lot of John Woo elements already, which is like a big gun battle inside the lab on top of the building. And it's okay. Like Tom Cruise is doing the stuff. He's using 2 guns. He's sliding. He's jumping to the side. It's a lot of slow-mo, though. The slow-mo does allow us to see that it's Tom Cruise. You can't really do stunt double slow-mo. So it's like, it's him doing it. But it's okay. It's not what we wanted. It's not the best thing ever. It was a decent John Woo action sequence, but it's nothing that really feel like any American director replicating John Woo couldn't have also done. It didn't feel like it was anything overly special. And I'm going back to when I saw it.
Yeah, no, same here. I agree. It's like, it's just because we know what John Woo can do, it's just like, okay, he's doing those things we like, but we've seen him done in a more exciting way than this. Also, again, we're seeing the evolution of this series because, yes, Cruise is doing like pretty much all his stunts here, and it is funny to see on the special features, like, and this is kind of like the train sequence in the first one where it's like, so Cruise really did this pretty crazy descending jump. It's just that it was a huge soundstage with the helicopter at the top of it, and you can see they kind of green screened like the shaft or whatever, the building around him as he jumps down. So it kind of takes away from the fact that in real life, what he's doing is amazing, and almost none of us could do it without shitting our pants, which is like going to the very top of like way up high and descending down. It's just that if they did that movie now, it would be a real, the helicopter would be out and, flying, and he'd do that jump. So it's like we're just seeing how things evolve, even though by any regular actor standard, he's already doing amazing things that other actors just wouldn't do.
And again, if you're somebody watching this movie who isn't again, we're speaking sort of shittily about this. It's like, oh, this is not as good as the John Woo stuff we've seen.
But most people wouldn't have seen that. John Woo stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people, to them, this was the shit. Like, I've never seen action like this. I've never seen Tom Cruise do this stuff. I didn't think this is definitely not your granddad's Mission Impossible.
Right, from 4 years ago.
So, yeah, if your granddad is Brian De Palma. Oh, I tried to get a spider on my window. Get out of here, spider. All right, I couldn't get it. I guess it's gonna bite me, and I'm gonna get superpowers at least. All right, I know you got time. So there's a whole thing at the track. There's a whole thing. There's a lot of plotting sequences. Again, a lot of it was mostly Naya centric, and that's why she felt like such a huge character for the first part of the movie. Then she vanishes almost. She becomes kind of a prop at the second part of the movie. She does have her big moment of injecting herself with the virus in that standoff. Then it becomes a race against time. How many hours, Eric? I don't know. How many hours does she have before she could be cured?
Told us.
Wish they told us at least once. And this becomes sort of like, as the movies go on, the goals seem more and more unreachable. And I think this is where it at least starts that, which is like, we have 20 hours to get Naya back and give her the cure. I'm going to get her. I don't know where she is. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And we see that escalate as the movies go on to the point of like, where in Fallout, it seems like a really impossible thing he has to do, which is, it's not mission difficult, Eric. And then it sort of becomes a rescue the girl movie until Ambrose reveals he's trying to use Naya to actually start an outbreak in Sydney. Because obviously he wants to sell the virus back to Brendan Gleeson's character, who we haven't even really mentioned all that much. But Brendan Gleeson is also in this movie, and he's starring as President Trump.
Which I forgot.
Trump right now in the Comey Report. Yeah.
Yes.
That's because he just wanted to talk about Dominic Purcell. Dominic Purcell. Everything's Dominic Purcell with Eric.
That's true.
Fuck Brendan Gleeson. That's what he says. Let's see. Then it goes from the lab, and he does a big daring parachute jump out of the building.
Which, again, he did that jump, but again, on the soundstage, but still very impressive. It's just if they did it today, he jumped from an actual skyscraper.
Then we get into the infiltrating the villain's base. I can't remember how he knows where they are. Maybe she still has that chip in her neck. She has a chip in her neck the whole time. Maybe they just track that. And he infiltrates the base, and we get the birds, Eric. And we get pigeons, which I know that doves, but then for the heroic moment, a pigeon in an alchemy sort of way transforms into a dove that flies. All the sky rats turned into a majestic, glowing dove that highlights Ethan as again, cool visuals in this movie at certain points, like him walking through that the fire-lit doorway with the dove and, Ambrose seeing him. The villain parts in this movie are super heightened or super flat, super cheesy. As Sean Ambrose as Dark Ethan is kind of boring.
Yep.
They try to make him menacing by he put the tip of his henchman's finger in a Darkman Durant style inside a cigar cutter and gave him a boo-boo. Like, he didn't even cut off his finger. I guess it's like, I need my henchmen to be able to fire guns and use both their hands.
The tip of his finger off,
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's not super menacing. Also, why is he more powerful than Hugh? Like, what? I mean, I guess he's an underling, but he feels like an equal. Like, why is Hugh taking this shit?
Right.
They didn't really explain the power dynamic. Because Hugh, in that moment, is standing up to Sean. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, he's like cowering in front of Sean. Like, why does he allow Sean to take his hand and put it in a cigar cutter? It seems weird. But yeah, it's super boring. I think my favorite moment with Sean Ambrose is when he gives Thandie Newton's Naya's like new clothes to put on, and she gets undressed, so she's naked before him. Yeah, and it's very John Woo-y. It's very over the top, but it's like his face just goes ugh. Like, yeah.
Someone he saw naked 6 months before, by the way.
I was falling asleep last night watching The Nice Guys on TV, which I love. But one of my favorite moments in that movie is when they just decide when Ryan Gosling goes full Lou Costello when he sees the dead body. At the party, and he's down by the tree, and he's trying to call out to Jack Healy, and he's like, like, and he can't do it. He just went full Costello. It is a good movie. Okay, pigeons. John Woo makes you wait for the birds. Little bit of better action than the other one. Like he takes down guards one by one, and then again the masks come in. Masks have been used. We haven't been going through this movie beat by beat, but masks are used so much in this movie that it's not even a huge deal at the end when he disguises Hugh up as he uses two masks. He disguises himself as Hugh, puts Hugh in the Ethan mask, duct tapes Hugh's mouth shut, gets Ambrose kills his own man. Seems very upset about it. Like this is a guy whose finger you put in a thing. Anyway.
I don't know. I think it was more that he just got tricked because Ethan ran off.
Oh yeah, but
I will say
pranks are the worst. Pranks are terrible.
They upped the technology because now they have the little voice strip. Because in the first movie, Ethan's just doing voices, and when he doubles Phelps, he doesn't speak. And of course, in the first movie, he's also Tom Cruise is playing both roles, like the guy who's on the talk show. But in this one, now they've explained that they've got this little voice thing on there that they have to keep. They have to do a double take off the mask, take off the neck thing every time.
Yeah, this does introduce a new piece of technology to the canon, which is the voice strip, which will come back in 3. Mm-hmm. All right. In a big way, I'm trying to remember 3. There's a big moment where the voice is a big part of it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then we get gunfights, firebombs, motorcycles, all this stuff. A lot of motorcycle stunts. When Ethan Hunt gets out of the bad guy's base, he puts his sunglasses on because he has to wear them when riding a motorcycle, I guess. I don't know. Sure. I feel like that. Why do you think Ethan puts his sunglasses on when he gets out?
Because they'll look cool.
So that's the only reason why. Because I was like, oh, do his sunglasses? Does he have like a weird sensor thing in there, like a tech thing that he can use while he's riding his motorcycle? No. And also maybe it's because it's easier to stunt double.
Even though they didn't have to double because Tom Cruise did just about all the motorcycles.
Yeah, so it's just like, I got to get my shades, man, for the bike ride.
He rode through the fire, and he did the skating along when Ethan jumps on the side. So again, this is like Cruise really kind of leveling up and doing way more than the stunt team thought he was going to do. But he wanted to get in there and do it, so he did it.
All right. Would you say they were dancing with the motorcycles, Eric?
I would definitely say they were dancing with the motorcycles. Lots of dancing back and forth. And then the kind of bizarre part where they ride at each other. It's jousting is what John Woo calls it. But they ride at each other. They both leap off. They both make the simultaneous decision to leap ahead of their motorcycles at each other. And then the motorcycles fly above them. Like the motorcycles, it doesn't really make sense that the motorcycles kind of ascend.
No, where the motorcycles go and where they go don't make any sense.
Right.
It's like they all went through.
Definitely seem to have jetpacks or some boosters beneath them and fly up higher.
Yet not the most ridiculous motorcycle stunt that John Woo has ever put on film, which is a Hard Target wins that one. But I don't know why they didn't stand on the motorcycles. That would have been a real joust as they drove toward each other. And during this chase, Ethan also allows some poor truck driver to commit full murder. Remember when he kills the guys by having the truck run in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that poor guy.
This is Ethan at his just most sort of diabolical and murderous. Yeah.
All right. So then down on the beach, they have a big fight. And at this point, Luther and Billy, integral to the plot, Billy, Eric.
Your favorite character of the entire franchise, Billy.
Rescue Naya, who has somehow made her way out of the heart of downtown Sydney to the cliffs.
And she's going to kill herself.
Well, they dropped her off in the middle of the city, not knowing that she could just walk away from there.
Yeah.
Which is weird. It's like, here, stay here so an outbreak can start. She's like, no, I'm going to walk out of town, and no one's there to watch her. So she's going to kill herself again, which is fine. It's her taking agency and control of her life and not wanting everyone to die. Yeah. But they pick her up and bring her to Ethan right as he's fighting Sean on the beach with, a pretty good fight. Pretty good hand-to-hand combat fight with, some notable things.
Knife at the eye.
Knife at the eye. He does an enziguri and kicks him in the back of the head. A lot of big jumping moves. There's a drop kick at one point.
And again, Cruise does his own, there's the cool spinny kick. He accidentally kicked Doug Ray in the face. So he has his mistakes too in the midst of all this.
You saying Tom Cruise is a flawed individual?
He's saying once in
I
a while.
say Scientology would like a word with you. So, yeah, and then he doesn't kill Sean, but then Sean does the thing. He's like, "You should have killed me," and he has a gun, and Ethan Hunt kicks the gun out of the sand, does a spin around, all in slow-mo.
It's a fun moment. I always remember to kick up the gun. I forgot that it's a cool moment because he throws the cure to Luther and then kicks the gun up.
Well, she's only got 20 hours.
Right.
I think. Someone correct me on that.
The 20 hours is almost up.
There was not even a clock countdown, by the way. All we would keep hearing from Ethan was, she doesn't have much time left. We don't know where they are with it. She have 2 hours left, or she have 3 seconds?
Right.
They didn't have, like, I expected him to have, like a timer on his wrist with 20-hour countdown. Because he's very specific when he jumps out of that building. He's like, in 19 hours and 58 minutes, I will save you.
Right.
But then from there on, we have no idea what time it is or how much time she has left. Also, is it really 20 hours? Can he maybe it's like 2 minutes before 20, but it still doesn't work? Or if it's 3 seconds after 20 hours, does it like immediately not work? All these questions we'll never know because Chimera was destroyed. Yeah. All right, let's talk about. It ends, and
the
they're like,
movie ends is they go off together. They're happy. Seemingly they're together, and all will be well in the world.
Which is very strange considering how the next movie starts.
Right.
It's not like
the lack of Tandy Newton in this series sense. Yes.
But lack of Tandy Newton, but also just like it's one thing for Bond to continuously be single at the start of movies, but that's not what happens here. He's not single, and so he's very much not single. So it's even funnier. Yeah. All right. What's some more behind the scenes things there?
We talked about the 4 years and the Eyes Wide Shut, but the big thing is that so they first offered this movie to De Palma to come back. He said no, but this for a long time Oliver Stone was going to direct this movie, which would have been another completely different auteur, someone who'd worked with Cruise before on Born on the 4th of July. Very different for Oliver Stone to even do a big summer action movie. Oliver Stone's quotes about it, though, talk about wanting to put meaning and blah blah blah. But I guess the scripts for that movie were very sci-fi. Like, I can't remember exactly. It sounded like it kind of started with a person of interest-y idea about, like, surveillance, but then it went into, like, I just know it kind of went into a lot of crazy, weird places. Then Stone left because of the Eyes Wide Shut delay. And then, before John Woo was hired, Ron Moore and Brandon Braga were brought on. They have the story by credit on the final movie. And they were brought on. They really shaped the initial story of what this movie is. However, we should talk about Robert Towne a little more. Just that Robert Towne, who is an acclaimed screenwriter who wrote Chinatown, and goes way back, obviously. And in the 90s, he was like the proto-Christopher McQuarrie for Cruise, which is to say, these days, Cruise does not make a movie without McQuarrie. Even when Top Gun 2 is announced and McQuarrie has nothing to do with it, eventually he has something to do with it. And like Cruise basically brings him on now to like be on set and do these last-minute rewrites that happen on all these big movies. And in the 90s, it was like he was playing with that with Towne. They did Days of Thunder together, they did The Firm together, and then he rewrote the first 2 Mission Impossible movies. And I think he only has the sole screenplay credit on this one, I think. But Moore did say, and again, the Light the Fuse podcast, who have good interviews, Moore did an interview, and he said that basically they were always told that. Like, Braga and him came on, again, they're coming off Star Trek First Contact. Ron Moore will go on to do Outlander and Battlestar. But at the time when they came on, it was made clear to them, you're going to write this, you're going to put this together, but then Robert Towne's going to come in and rewrite you completely. So they always knew that was like the deal with this movie. And it sounds like Naya, they were a lot of back and forth. Like you brought up, Matt, like the 6 months thing, and that's surprising. But it's like Naya, at one point, she was going to be a full IMF agent. Because in this movie, it's like, Swanbeck's like, recruit her, but she's not. She's like, she's never worked for the IMF. At one point, she's an IMF agent. At one point, she and Ethan had a romantic history. So it's like there was a lot of back and forth about how much she might have been like already part of this world or not. That changed. I do remember Ron Moore said that there was all these crazy notes you get in this, and I think he said Paula Wagner. There's some weird note that says clone Luther.
Okay. Oh wow, are we getting into AIM territory here? That's where this all naturally heads, is Ethan Hunt versus AIM.
Toy with this movie getting into a way more sci-fi than it ended up being, and that and then John Woo came on, and then again that as they were told, Robert Towne came in and rewrote it, and Robert Towne is like, I came in and all the action again has I think you brought up for the first movie, but this becomes a thing where it's like, these are the set action sequences. Now we need the story to be either written fully or just built up more around it.
They did the same thing that we talked about last episode, which is the movies going forward, they have the set pieces in mind, and then the story is crafted around it. The story was fine. It could have been, look, there's seeds of greatness here. It just never came to fruition. It was longer than it needed to be. It was more of a trudge than it needed to be. And just stylistically, John Woo, he brought something very different, and it worked because it made a lot of money. But overall, as far as like a movie that's rewatchable and fits within the actual franchise at this point, it stands out a lot as kind of a slog to get through at points.
Yeah. And I will say, like, not that there's any reports of, like, I haven't seen anything about, like, bad blood or they didn't get along. But I think it does say something that, as far as I know, John Woo is the only director of this series that wasn't at least asked, do you want to come back? So I think Cruise knew this is not the way he wanted to continue. It's like, okay, we did
especially, like I said, and you know this obviously too, but the next movie would reboot the franchise stylistically in a way that it has kept that blueprint since and become super successful. So it went back to its roots. It went away from the new metal group, like doing a rework of the score, went away from the hard rock elements and went back to more traditional Mission Impossible stuff that the first movie was sort of tipping its hat to as an homage,
Yeah, and it's funny, by the way, you mentioned the soundtrack. This is also like the only one of the movies that has like this big like non-score soundtrack with a bunch of bands. Again, 2 big hit songs that come from the soundtrack, including very of the moment Limp Bizkit.
Oh man, but of the moment Limp Bizkit, Metallica too, but also the soundtrack has like Godsmack and Rob Zombie and Buckcherry. My God.
Yeah, it's got Foo Fighters. It's got Uncle Kracker. The weirdest one is Tori Amos. She just stands out amongst all the other acts on this. But Chris Cornell song, yeah. So it was just such a different movie as far as how they positioned it. Coming off the first one, and then where the series would go. Well,
didn't you remember when Tori Amos was part of the Family Values tour?
Right.
And then when Rob Zombie was part of the Lilith Fair, yeah,
that would be amazing. I would love that. There's a lot more about the development of the third one. I mean, look, the third one took 6 years. But we'll talk on the next one about all the whys and hows of that.
All right, everyone. Yeah. Next time we're going to talk about a Mission Impossible 3, a franchise revitalization by J.J. Abrams, who is so hot right now back then, and still to this day carries a lot of weight. But particularly back then, it was like a big deal. I remember the production behind the scenes stuff from that movie when it was like. They were almost sort of, because J.J. Abrams was big in TV, and this was like his big movie coming out.
Yep. Obviously, I guess we'll veer here to MI3, but yeah, I'll just say with Lawrence Fishburne, we're still, even though things are going to start to change with 4, it's like we're still in this place where like no one but Luther, Ethan obviously, but no one besides Luther comes back. And for the most part, and they especially keep giving new bosses, right?
Yep.
It's like every movie there's a new boss, and there's no explanation of what happened to the last boss.
It half-ass works only because so far, what is there? 4 years between 1 and 2,
and 6
between
this.
Is
the longest gap. Yeah.
So there are actually like substantial gaps between movies to the point where you can forgive that. Where it's like, okay, the fact that Luther is still around in 3 after it being 10 years after the first movie was out is, that's good continuity. And the fact that there's been vastly different directors and styles for each 3 movies.
Yeah.
Once a movie starts coming out every couple years, 2 years or so, then you want a little more continuity. And as we're seeing with the most recent ones, there is more continuity because you get that too when you've got the same director.
when you have the same person guiding him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the crazy thing, right? This movie is already 10 years after the first one. So just it's funny that it's that much time has passed, and then also it helps much more be like, yeah, it makes sense that Ethan's now become he's training. He's not a field agent when this movie begins.
Okay, first thing I want to ask you, Eric, for this movie, which I really enjoyed. I had only seen the second one once, and I never revisited it because I didn't like it. There was stuff I remembered, obviously, but I saw it in the theater, didn't see it again. This one I liked, and I saw multiple times, but I also still hadn't seen it in a long time. Mm-hmm. So it was fun. Tom Cruise running is a thing. It's a meme. It's a viral thing. It's just like he runs really intensely. He runs great. Like, he's great at running. I don't think anyone's really making fun of him when he does it, but he does a lot of running in his movies. Is this the runningest movie he's done?
I don't know that for sure, but it's certainly with this series,
Between the end run,
that run he does through the small Chinese village.
But he does a lot of running on the bridge.
Yeah,
he does a lot of running in the opening action sequence in Germany. I feel like this is the runningest he's ever been.
It's certainly possible. It certainly has to be up there. I love this movie. I love this movie. I remember seeing it right after I started IGN. I remember going to a screening of this movie, like 2 months after, and at the Cinerama Dome, and just really being, and I didn't go in with like, well, that's not true. There were some clips I'd seen that made me pretty excited, but I'd been burnt by two, Matt. But no, I loved it, and watching it again, I loved it. I do kind of think it's underrated because, yes, Ghost Protocol is where I think we really see the full, like, here's everything that Mission Impossible series will become. But this movie laid a lot of that groundwork, and it certainly did the job of kind of rebuilding things after 2. And yes, to answer that email, Philip Seymour Hoffman is so good in it. I actually think he's easily the best villain in this franchise, but I also think he's just like a great action movie villain in general. Like, when you look at, Hans Gruber is going to probably be number one for forever and one of the best movies ever, action movies ever, and one of the best movies ever with Die Hard. But Philip Seymour Hoffman, Owen Davian, great villain. Just the way he underplays it, the way.
And he also doesn't look like what you would expect from an action movie villain. He doesn't look the part. He's never played the part before. Like, he's never played a menacing, like, international, black arms dealer in a movie before. This was sort of a really outside the box role for Philip Seymour Hoffman, and that's one of the elements that made him so great in it.
Yep. He plays with total confidence. Look, I think they play fair, which is to say, because he does look like Philip Seymour Hoffman. So when they have their final fight, they make sure Ethan is incredibly, incapacitated, so to make it a level playing field. So as far as like the screaming in his brain when they fight. Also, it's funny that I blanked out on the fact that they had a lot of time working together in Magnolia. They
had a few scenes in that movie.
Yeah, so it's like
you do wonder, like, Magnolia was before this, so
99.
So with Cruise as a producer, you have to wonder, like, he was very instrumental in bringing Philip Seymour Hoffman on board to this. Hoffman, who doesn't do these, again, not just action movies, but big budget movies. So Tom Cruise really had to talk him into it and, like, convince him to do this part. Mm-hmm. And they work really well together. They have there's a fight scene at the end, which is a fight scene, but they have two really intense scenes together. One which opens this movie. Hey, look, Eric, the movie's immediately interesting with this opening.
Yes.
And this is a trope that wasn't a trope back then, but it is now. It is a narrative technique that is overused now in movies and TV shows.
The funny thing is, Abrams himself used it a shitload on Alias, and it did. Oh, now you might now hear horrible noises. Sorry, because they're in the kitchen. But Abrams did it in media res. They call it, where you begin in the middle of an intense sequence, then you flash back, you eventually catch up to it. He did it on Alias a lot to really good use until it became overused. But I will say, in feature films, it wasn't used that much, and especially in a big movie like this, and it felt sort of very exciting.
Well, if we're talking about
it's such a good scene.
Well, if we're talking, there are things that just really work well. One is media res. It's overused nowadays, especially if it's a show that's not that great, because then you have a boring scene that you don't care about, and you don't necessarily even give a shit what happened a week or 6 months before. Like, who cares? So the problem with overusing it is that you use it for lesser products, and that it loses its sting. Media res is still great. There are things that, have become so commonplace now, thanks to Alias and thanks to Lost. And we're talking not just about J.J. Abrams with Lost, obviously, but also Lindelof and Hughes. But the flashbacks, the character-specific flashbacks in an episode, where like this episode is a Jack chapter, and this is a Kate episode, and this is a Sawyer one, where you just get like 4 flashbacks that are so well crafted, like 3-minute scenes that give you a kind of an entire story that's really well done. That doesn't happen here. I'm just talking about things that are now so commonplace on TV that you forget, like just a little over 10 years ago, they were like groundbreaking.
Yeah. This movie is interesting because it's directed by J.J. Abrams, who becomes like super polarizing, and it's like he's coming out right now. Right now, he's coming off Rise of Skywalker, a movie that a lot of people hate and really disappointed people. It also was written by Abrams and Orci and Kurtzman. Orci and Kurtzman get shit on a tremendous amount. I think the thing about Orci, Kurtzman, and Abrams is that they are good examples of the fact that sometimes people make good things and bad things. And I think this is a tremendously well-made movie by 3 men who sometimes kind of get like uniformly shit on, oh, everything they do is crap, which I've never believed, because I love Fringe and I love Alias and I love, which Orci Kurtzman also worked on. It's like I love a lot of things these guys have worked on. There's also some bad things they've worked on.
It's always the last thing, though, Eric.
Yes.
Because look at Lindelof, right? He got shit on for a decade because of how Lost ended, and then because of Prometheus, and then a few other things. But then Leftovers, obviously, we loved, but was very smaller. It had a small following. Watchmen, though, was critically acclaimed, watched by a lot of people, cleaned up at the Emmys, et cetera, et cetera. So again, it's always it's what have you done for me lately? It's the last thing on your resume, or the last couple things. Yeah.
This is a really well done movie that. Like that opening scene, it's so great. And look, I remember the press at the time. Abrams was like, the 2 things Abrams said were a big thing he wanted to do with the movie, which is more of a team dynamic, because he liked the team dynamic from the TV show. And these movies were obviously like Ethan, and he had Luther and some people like Billy, but he wanted to put much more of an actual team dynamic. And then he also was like, we need to get into like who Ethan is much more as a character. And this opening sequence with Phil Seymour Hoffman being awesome, but Ethan so emotional, like we don't know Julia, but it's like, oh my God, like he is looking at her, and like he's great in that scene. I think Cruise selling like how upsetting this is for him. It's an excellent way to open this movie.
People will complain a little bit about this movie. First of all, I was very surprised that Roger Ebert hated this movie so much, but loved 2.
Right.
It's just one of those weird things with Siskel and Ebert, where they would just randomly hate on a movie, where it's like, this was far, by a huge stretch, the more intricate, humanizing, complex, entertaining movie than 2. But yeah, he didn't like it. Anyway, you could criticize this movie a little bit for the overall, the MacGuffin, the plot. Like, the rabbit's foot's never told. You're not told what it is. When the villain reveals himself at the end and says, "It's whatever this is, I'm just trying to get it to the Middle East so that we have an excuse to invade the Middle East." Like, it's kind of thin.
Well, but the ending is the Musgrave's speech is extremely post 9/11, post mid 2000s.
Yeah, mid
cynicism
GW
about why we went to Iraq. Yeah,
it's faking weapons of mass destruction,
right?
So that we could do an invasion of the Middle East and take over. But again, so you could criticize the movie for that, but that's not the point of the movie. There's so much other better things in the movie going on. One, the humanizing and the layering of Ethan Hunt as a character, and his love with Julia and getting married and all that stuff. Luther there returning, but with a purpose, because he's like the jaded guy who's like, relationships don't work, Ethan, not in this life. He even says like 23 months is the maximum. Like there's a statistic out there. It's and the action sequences and the twists and the turns and just some of the scenes are so great that yeah, anyone who complains about the other elements of it is like, well, it's like you're just looking for something to sort of pick apart here, I guess. Kind of like what we do with wrestling.
I think it's because, let me talk about the rabbit's foot for a second, which is that, again, Abrams, because, yes, I agree that Abrams, like his whole mystery box thing, and that, Abrams' whole thing is that it's more interesting to not know the answer. And, of course, that has that's been like his fight with his audiences for a long time, that he loves the mystery more than the solution to the mystery. And so people either feel pissed that he doesn't answer what it is, or if he does answer it, he doesn't do it in a way they feel satisfying. The rabbit's foot is very, very, very purposely designed to be that, right? Like, they never tell you what it is. I love that personally, especially in a series that I love where I never really care what the thing is they're trying to stop.
No, I know. Whether I think it's everything from
fun,
a list of spies' names to a bomb. Yeah,
but people hate on it a lot because of Abrams' other projects. Again, it's like it does, because it can't exist in a vacuum. But I actually think it's a very fun idea to be like, they give Simon Pegg this speech about the anti-god to be like, hey, this is an awful thing, but they don't specifically tell you. And I'm 100% okay with that, but I do know that this has stopped some people.
The anti-god speech is great, and it's obviously, I don't know what the designs were, but Pegg's character comes back, and he's been a huge asset to the series going forward. After having only two fun scenes in this movie,
but one's a big one at the end.
Big one at the end, but I also think I thought it was interesting that the rabbit's foot was being auctioned or sale on the black market for $850 million. Eric, remember how much the idiot back in Mission Impossible 2 was getting for a disease that could ravage the world? $37 million. $37 million. He sold his soul. Meanwhile, someone out there is willing to pay $850 million. And this only 6 years later, so for the rabbit's foot. Yeah, I don't care what it is either. He just describes it as a really dangerous element, mystery tech, whether it's a bomb, whether it's a plague. It doesn't matter. It's just it. It's it, and it is bad. And that's good enough for me.
Yes.
Let's see. So I'm also trying to remember if this is the first movie I ever saw Michelle Monaghan in.
Well, it wasn't for me because I absolutely adored Kiss Kiss Bang Bang a year before.
Okay, so she wasn't. Okay, that was the year before. So this wasn't the first, though I didn't see that in the theater.
Okay.
So this may still have been the first movie I saw Michelle Monaghan in. Anyway,
because I think this was the first thing a lot of people saw her in. Although was she in a movie with Shia LaBeouf? Am I inventing that?
I don't know. Sounds fun. She's in a movie with David Duchovny because isn't she in the Craft reboot that's coming out?
Is she?
Is she the mom in that?
I think you're right. You're right. So she was in. Oh no, Eagle Eye was after this. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was her first big thing. So, you very likely, and many people would not have seen her before this.
Yes, this is, and she's so great.
Oh, she's in Born Supremacy, but she's barely in it. I think I kind of remember.
I wouldn't remember that.
She's sitting at a computer. She's like one of my
favorite part of the Bourne series.
Yeah. Yeah. She's there when people are yelling that Jason Bourne has been spotted.
Were you also amused, and again, like I said, I hadn't seen this movie in a while, that Aaron Paul, Breaking Bad's Aaron Paul, plays her brother, and that the two of them would play husband and wife later on the path?
I was amused, but also I don't know if you saw, or it was very funny when she was in it, because I watched this movie a lot. When they did the path together, I was like, oh my God, that's funny. They play sister and brother in Mission Impossible 3. And then when it was announced that she was returning for Fallout, Aaron Paul tweeted at her about, like, can her brother come back or something like that. Like, he did, like what's up with her brother? And I was sad that he did not show up. He so far has not been brought back.
As the villain. Series. Yeah, Path Pals for life.
We get the party, which has a lot of familiar faces because it also has Greg Grunberg, of course, because J.J. Abrams and Greg Grunberg grew up together. They're childhood friends, hence Greg Grunberg being in everything Abrams does.
Including, obviously, Felicity. And then we've got
pilot on Lost. So we're second Lost actor. We had because we had Ethan Frome in the last movie with William Apatow, and now we have Greg Grunberg here. Look, we had to have a break right now. We had a pause here, and now we don't remember where we were at. But we were pretty early. Right?
Well, you were talking about Greg Grunberg and other actors
Oh yeah,
from Lost.
yeah. So Greg Grunberg, who'd been in everything Abrams already, would continue to be so. Also was on Lost.
And Giacomo, the score.
Oh yes. And again, who has now become a huge movie composer. At the time, had already done Incredibles, but was also mostly known again for Abrams TV stuff, Alias and Lost specifically. And this kind of blends. He'd go on to continue. He'd do the next Mission Impossible movie, the only composer at that point to have done 2 of these movies. But yeah, he has this background. The Incredible score obviously feels very sort of throwback spy, because Brad Bird, who's going to direct the next, who directs Ghost Protocol, loves spy stuff. So it's a good blending of elements here. Although we still do not get a flash forward opening credits after the first movie.
Already we got a different Ethan Hunt. We're seeing him in a social setting outside of work. He's lying about who he is. He's lying about his family, maybe? Because he says he's like orphan too, so I guess his drug lord mom died, or
I think we're supposed to believe that's true, that his mom had passed away.
Either he's disavowed her because she's a meth dealer, or it's been a long time. Just like the rotating bosses, you can believe his mom passed away. In infamy and shame, by the way, because she was known to all of her people in her town and surrounding areas as a ruthless narcotics trafficker.
Her and her brother were notorious drug ring, yeah.
They were like Fenris,
yeah,
wet with drugs. So, okay. I mentioned that most blueprints for Tom Cruise movies involve the asshole becoming a nice guy. Mm-hmm. Like, that's putting it very plainly. But yeah, arrogant, cocky, jerk, learning a lesson in humility. After the second movie, these Mission Impossible movies aren't that for Tom Cruise, and that's a big outlier in his career. And I think also that's why they really work well. Like, starting with 3 specifically, because he's still sort of an arrogant player in 2 as it starts.
Right.
And we're supposed to believe that he falls so hard for Naya that he's a changed person and a better person by the end of the movie because he's found someone. She's gone. But starting with 3, Ethan Hunt is a very layered, sympathetic character who's just a good hero. Who, much like MCU would delve into with, Tony Stark's guilt and need to save the world, this is what compounds upon Ethan as every movie goes forward, is the overwhelming need to be the one, not for his own glory, but he has to be in the front lines to save the world.
Right.
And that's his character, but this film series has still managed to make that very interesting. His overwhelming guilt, his premonitions of doom, his I don't know how to say it, but it all kind of starts here with his first attempt, his big attempt to lead a normal life and to separate himself from the IMF, so much so that when we find him now, he's a trainer. He's not an active agent in the field. He trains new agents.
Right.
And this is a great in for this movie because it gives us, why can't I remember her fucking name?
Kerry Russell?
Kerry Russell as
Lindsay Ferris.
As Lindsay Ferris, the
Not
only
Ferris.
agent he's ever put his stamp of approval on for the field. The first or the only or both. Definitely the first. I think the only agent he's only actually signed off on. And so that's what brings him back into the field, is that she's gone missing. And I love how this movie addresses the giant elephants in the room, which is his suspicious behavior. Going off and doing what he's doing makes Julia think he has an affair. Everything he's doing, and then he has to return after he basically loses Kerry Russell. And he's traumatized and he's sad and he has to act like, he's like, how do I go back to Julia now and pretend like I didn't just come from what I just came from? Right. And she obviously sees it. And it's like, is he having an affair? Did he go off somewhere to end his life with another woman? Does he have a separate family somewhere? Like, they don't say these things necessarily out loud, but they definitely bring it up because she's like, I don't trust you. What, like, are you in this? Like, what is happening with you? And then I even love later on when Luther even asks if there's something romantic going on that ever happened between him and Ferris.
Yes, I thought that was great too. It's a funny moment, but it's also dealing with something the audience will ask. But
No,
also,
and I love that the movie does that.
right. It's smart that how they do that. And also, yeah, when he comes home and she's died, it's like he's lost this person who's really important to him, but he can't say anything to his wife. It's a great scene, and it's also when I really realized that this movie is basically True Lies with a lot more depth. And I really like True Lies, but True Lies plays everything like very big. But the whole what's it like a spy who's keeping it a secret from his wife. This movie plays it very real, and that scene, especially when he can't talk about losing someone that he loved to his wife. That's a very good scene to illustrate that, as far as like that there's like the price we pay.
Well, the thing is, Ethan's plan would have worked if he just not had to go back in the field.
Yes,
and he didn't have to. Like, Musgrave was kind of like Billy Crudup, the better Prefontaine, as I know him, the winner of the Prefontaine Wars. He was like, we have other agents. Obviously, Musgrave is the villain. He's the reveal at the end, and he knows Ethan won't be able to resist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, you can't lead this life and lie to your wife. It's not great. You can't do that. Harry Tasker from True Lies was doing it way worse because he was a full agent in the field, going off doing these stupendously dangerous things. Right now, he's just a trainer, and he probably really thought he could live his life just doing that, saying he worked studying traffic patterns and boring people. You know what I mean? But because of what happens in this movie, because of the stuff with Owen Davian and Agent Ferris, there's no way he can live that life. So Ethan has a good plan, but Luther has a really solid point. And then by the end, what you see is like, he is really, like you said, True Lies, really forced in a way to violently come to terms with telling his wife the truth and her finding out about it. So this movie just really takes the franchise to makes an exponential leap in levels with the character of Ethan Hunt. And it's really great, and the action's really great. Let's move forward past the party. So we meet the new team. We've got Maggie Q. Spoilers, sadly, these two don't return. Who's to say they won't return in the next two? Because we've got Christopher McQuarrie in a very Fast and Furious type way, in a very Saw type way. Like, continuity is adhered to when you've got similar creative teams returning for movie after movie, and continuity is chef kiss wonderful. Because, should we give this away? Because it's not a movie anyone's seen.
I don't know what you're going to say, so I don't even know.
Kitteridge is coming back.
Yeah, I guess we could say that.
We can say that. It's in the news.
Yeah.
Henry Czerny is returning after 6 movies as Kitteridge, who we haven't seen since the first movie, where he was a very prominent character.
Yes.
So that's a great example of the franchise paying attention to itself and rewarding fans who have followed it and care. Anyway, so we're going to talk about 2 characters it doesn't do that with, which are Maggie Q's Zen, and Jonathan Rhys-Meyers as Declan. Maggie Q would get a really cool spy series out of this in Nikita. And Jonathan Rhys-Meyers has been in a ton of shit. Most recently, I saw him on Vikings, but he has been in a lot of very different things.
And The Tudors was his big show after this.
But before this, he was in Velvet Goldmine and a lot of...
and Maggie Q is an American who had starred in a bunch of like Hong Kong action movies prior to this.
She's supposed to be doing a new female pirate show.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know if anything is happening due to COVID, but that was the last I heard of her. And at first you think Declan, very Irish name, the best use of the name Declan in movies since Richard Gere played Declan Mulqueen in the remake of The Jackal with Bruce Willis.
Sure.
You can quote me on that one.
All right.
You think he's just the pilot, and then you're like, why don't they just bring back Billy? Because he was so great.
Matt's really on Billy watch, by the way.
Well, he serves a very similar role as Billy. He's the chopper pilot, And he's a guy in the field where he's way more active in the field in this movie because the ops are a lot more fun than they are in 2. Where
and they definitely
compared to the racetrack scene where all she has to do is pickpocket somebody. Like,
yeah, we'll talk about the Vatican sequence, but it's like the concerted effort to be like everyone is going to play a role and they won't. Ethan is the star of the movie. Tom Cruise star of the movie. Ethan gets the most to do, but the other people get stuff to do too on the missions in a way they didn't before.
Even Luther got to fire fire guns. He got to scuba. You know. He got to do in-field tech stuff, so that was really cool. So they are there. He gets, and as a pilot in that Germany sequence, which is already a really fun, cool-looking action sequence. You know, it came out the same year, and I can't remember what came out first. But the action in this movie, there's a clarity to it and a crispness to it, where it's like everything's dark, but also very visible. The way they light and shoot these scenes, where I don't mind dark movies, but what I really hate is like, you don't really have any great high-res photos to use for these movies. Why are they dark too? Can't you do something? But Mr. and Mrs. Smith came out the same year from Doug Lyne.
I thought they came out a year before. I could be wrong about that. But
possibly. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just saying that when I watched this, I was like, this feels like the action from Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is really great, which is complex, layered, and easy to follow too. It's not like edited too quickly. It looks great. The shots, the compositions work well. So that's what I thought of a lot in this first sequence, specifically in Germany. It's a very tragic telling sequence that already answers a few questions from the opening scene about the bomb in his head. Because you don't know that's a throwaway line in that opening scene, and then we see it happen to Kerry Russell. And this scene does a lot. It's full of action. It's Kerry Russell being a badass before she's a badass on the Americans. And it's answering the question about the bomb in the head while simultaneously also giving you the way to beat the bomb in the head. It doesn't work. It will work at the end of this movie when Ethan kills himself to defuse the bomb in his head. But it's answering a lot of questions from the first part, and it's giving you stuff for later. And it gives Declan a really fun helicopter chase.
Yes, it does. And it gets a juxtaposition, the fact that he's having a woohoo helicopter chase, but something horrific is about to happen. And her death is very horrific. Just how quickly it happens and her eyes all screwed up. It's a very effective. Also, I wanted to mention Kerry Russell's casting because it served a couple of purpose. You know, first of all, of course, it's like she was Felicity. It's like J.J. Abrams and her, their like breakout show together. So there was this cool thing of them reuniting on this. The other is there's a whole sort of meta layered aspect here. The more you know about Abrams and background, because the fact that Alias exists as a show, because Abrams said by the time you're doing year 2 or 3 of a show where people are in college, and he was like, can't she just become a spy? Can't we just send her on fun missions? And that is basically how Alias began, was him throwing out what if Felicity was a spy. So the fact that he finally got to put Kerry Russell as a spy was great, and the fact that she would then go on to have an award-winning, amazing performance as a spy for several years on a TV show after this was a whole cool thing.
Yeah, a couple people got spy shows after this. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're back. There's a whole stuff with Julia where she's, Ethan's not well. He's lying to her. She knows it. What is he lying about? She obviously goes to, he's cheating on me, or he's having cold feet. He's obviously not into this relationship. And he decides to prove it to her by getting married on the spot in the hospital. Mm-hmm. How long are her breaks, by the way? Anyway, I understand that on one hand you could explain it as Ethan is a spy and he would like be very, but it's very funny when he like knows everyone at the hospital by name. Like, I mean, it's in the context of him trying to find her and save her, but he's like Tracy, blah blah blah. It's like he's running through this big hospital and he knows everyone. Well, he's just that kind of person. He's great with names. Yeah. Well, here's the thing: he has to be great with names, Eric. He's a spy. He has to remember everything.
You can believe it for that reason. It's just a funny thing where I'm like, man, yeah, Ethan is a very considerate.
It's just also a testament to the acting and the directing and the script, where after we've already just only had like 8 to 10 minutes of Tom Cruise and Michelle Monaghan together, and they're getting married, and you believe it.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a juxtaposition with, like we said, the last movie which wanted to sell you on a huge romance, and was like, it's not like it was. We understand the melodrama was kind of on purpose, but in no way was I invested in that relationship.
No.
And this movie, the opening scene, I'm invested in that relationship, and she hasn't even spoken. And then we get to know her. Michelle Monaghan is a very, very likable actress on screen, and so yeah, you were quickly invested in the two of them.
And all the while, Ethan he's at the funeral for Ferris, and there's the flashbacks. The training. Am I ready? And it's haunting him. The quote in his head. So you've got the whole, can Ethan have a life, which is this movie? Can he have a life?
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, what's the next step here? Oh, we meet Lawrence Fishburne, who's, I guess Musgrove is like his contact and his point person, and the guy who, Musgrave, sorry, I'm going to get that mixed up constantly. And the guy whose voice offers him your mission should you choose to accept it. But Lawrence Fishburne is the boss.
Yeah.
He's the
Brassel.
guy. He's the guy who gets to very cleverly yell at everybody with funny lines, and would also become eventually, very quickly, the red herring in this movie. Sold on the fact that Ferris, her secret message, when it finally gets decoded for Ethan, says it's
she was suspicious of Brassel. Yeah.
Brassel, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that only you would learn later it's because Musgrave framed Brassel.
Mm-hmm.
So that Ferris would point him out to Ethan. That's really why he wanted Ethan to rescue Ferris. Like, he literally, at the end, he believed Musgrave when he's like, I thought you could get her. You know, Musgrave wasn't counting on the bomb in the head. Yeah.
One of the deleted scenes, I'm glad they cut it because it did add like a layer that didn't need it, but it was interesting. One of the deleted scenes is Lindsay's funeral and Musgrave revealing that he and Lindsay were a couple. And he's like, oh, I don't know if she told you.
That was unnecessary. You don't need that.
Yeah.
Now we've got some intel that you've got Simon Pegg's anti-God scene, and also where he reveals that he knows where we know he knows where Owen Davian's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And Ethan can't resist. He has to be the one, because of what happened to Lindsay. He has to be the one to capture Davian. And here comes a very complex heist. Because
I think a fantastic sequence.
Very great. They go to Vatican City, and they have to steal Owen Davian while also faking his own death, so that people don't know he's been taken.
Right.
And Luther's got the thing where it's like they run down like the security of the Vatican, and he's like, this is going to make Langley look like a cakewalk. No mention of what happened in 2 with the lab. But we do still get a call back to the wire work from 1 where he lowers himself and he just barely hits barely misses hitting the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And we get our first big use in this movie of mask play.
And also the first time ever in the series showing how a mask is made.
Yep, and how it is interesting because, I guess you always have to take those pictures so you can scan the mask, right? That makes sense.
I think the idea
and the whole idea is that no one,
especially who's hard to get a hold of, they wouldn't have as much pictures. Like with other people, they would just be pictures already.
Right.
If it was like a famous person.
Because no one's seen him in person, they have to do it on the spot, or else they would have the mask pre-made, right? And also, as I pointed out last week, the voice strip comes into play big here because there's a sequence where he has to wait 30 seconds in the bathroom for the voice to activate, and he has to like stall the guard and not make him come in while Declan has the real Davian behind the door, and it's very fun.
And also, let's think about how this is it's a great sequence for many reasons. And one great one is, a combined thing is we're seeing how the masks are made in a fun, like plausible, which is to say, not really plausible, but makes sense within this world. Oh, this is cool. This is fun, like sci-fi movie tech way. Also, it means Philip Seymour Hoffman is playing Ethan Hunt for a while. And that is also very fun, both because he and Luther are having a big conversation about Julia, and Philip Seymour Hoffman. First, it's Tom Cruise dubbing Philip Seymour Hoffman, then it becomes Philip Seymour Hoffman's voice. But also, it's like they have like, of course, I'm sure they had to use a double, but it's very fun when they have like Ethan has Davian like going up through the rafters and stuff. It's like this is Ethan Hunt, but Philip Seymour Hoffman is playing him for a while.
And then when he and Luther see each other again, they're like, "What's up?
Yeah,
How you doing?" Like it's a funny scene. And yeah, it just all really works well.
Oh, and we should mention how all our worlds combine here, Matt, with the appearance of Bahar Sumek. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. Davian's translator, the star of Saw 3. So our previous We Enjoy Wrestling.
Oh, that's right. She got her head blown off. She was the doctor.
Well, she's head blown off in Saw, and here she's fake Julia. It turns out,
and she gets her head blown off again. Yeah.
Yes. Well, this time it's internal.
Yeah, that's true. Fun. Okay, so I did like when they have to set up the distraction on the street, where Jonathan Rhys-Meyers and Tom Cruise have to yell at each other in Italian with the big hand gestures. And I'm like, oh, are they just? Is that like a weird laugh, like they're going big with the hand gestures? But then the Italian guy in the car gets out and yells at them with the same hand gestures. I'm like, okay, it's just everyone's having a little rib on Italy here.
Maggie Q is in a jaw-dropping dress with a rad car. Everyone gets to play a part, be a part of it. Maggie Q is really fun with such a nice car before she has to blow it up. The attention to detail is great. Like, they just sell it all. Like, even the fact that right before the big bodyguard comes in, he has to spray his shirt to like fake the wine spill. You know, it's very well constructed to the point that I remember seeing the first time I saw it when they get away in the boat. And the Mission Impossible theme plays, people applauded. It was just like, we just watched something really cool. like it was not, because it's not like a huge applause, like killing the bad guy moment. It's just like, yay, that was so well done.
Yeah, it wasn't a moment. It was like applause for a whole sequence. Yeah.
Right.
Then we get a really awesome Ethan Owen scene in the plane where, and you love it when villains play against type, when they just do something that breaks convention. And because, you know, there's a lot of cliches about villains. One is that they speechify and that they tell you their whole plans before killing you, and then they've inadvertently ruined themselves because you escape, and et cetera, et cetera. Here, Owen Davian does something that I don't think I've ever seen a villain in a movie do before, which is what you kind of look for in villains. You want to see something new, which is that he doesn't even want to engage Ethan in... First of all, Owen knows that he's got backup.
He will not play the game Ethan is trying to do.
Nope, not at all. And he knows Musgrave is going to save him. So all he wants to talk about is who Ethan loves. Who's your girlfriend? Who's your wife? I'm going to kill him. Look, I'm not answering anything. I'm just going to kill your girlfriend. Like, he literally goes to the darkest place that a bad guy can go immediately.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's so great because... it just throws Ethan into a rage. Like,
it's great.
Does exactly what he wants to do.
And of course, Phil Seymour Hoffman is amazing in the scene. And when he's like, that was nothing, that was fun. When he talks about what he did to Lindsay, it's all very chilling. But again, yeah, credit where credit's due to Abrams, Orsi, and Kurtzman for like writing this scene in a very different way than a lot of these scenes are written. And the fact that it rattles Ethan, and again, this movie dimensionalizes Ethan so much more. To the fact that that it pushes, it gets to him and it sort of breaks him, which is exactly what Davian is like kind of trying to do.
I don't want to drag on and on about the movie, even though it's a great movie, but yeah, so we don't have to dig into the bridge action sequence, which is great. What I wanted to say is that it had the trailer moment, which was the missile hitting the car, Ethan going into the car at the same time, like getting blasted.
The shockwave hitting.
The shockwave hitting him, throwing him into the passenger side of the car. Great moment.
That was that scene, by the way. I said I didn't want to go in overhyped because I was worried, but I will say what made me first be like, oh shit, this might be awesome, was I went to WonderCon in February, and Abrams was there, and he basically showed two sequences that were pretty close to each other, which he showed some of them on the plane that I'm going to find her, I'm going to kill her, and then he showed some of that action scene ending with that beat, which would later be put in the trailer. And I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. And it really goes to show you, it's just about, like, we've all seen a million action movies, and it's about something new, something different. We've seen a million action movies where the hero walks away slowly from an explosion. That's a cliche. We've also seen, sometimes the hero might have to run away from an explosion. But we'd never seen, or at least I couldn't think of a time we'd seen what happened there happen, which is Ethan's running. He's a big runner in this movie. He's running because he knows the missile's coming, but the fact that he gets away from the missile, but the shockwave sends him off his feet, it just was, again, I keep using the word clever, but it was like, that's like a cool thing we just don't see in these action sequences.
And as you mentioned when we talked about, I think it was the first movie, how Ethan becomes more and more of a superhero as these movies go on, considering what he accomplishes and what he pulls off. It still always works because Tom Cruise is committed to the performance. You see the effort. Ethan does crazy, impossible things, but you see the work. You see the struggle. You see the injuries, the blood, sweat, and tears. You see he is a mortal person.
He's not the stoic 80s action hero.
And you want, and again, you want to see, this started with, I believe this started with Die Hard, Eric. When they made, he was a cop, yeah, but they made the action hero, quote unquote, an everyman, blue collar guy.
Yes.
You want to see your hero get the shit kicked out of him.
Yep.
Like maybe it started. I think I'm off base. It probably started with Indiana Jones a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's what you want, and that's the tradition they continue here. Really starting with this movie with Ethan, which is like he's going to get battered and bruised, and he's going to literally kill himself at the end. He's going to die in this movie, and he's going to do everything he can, tooth and nail. He's going to come out the winner, but he's gonna hurt the next morning. So what I really wanted to say was, like, immediately after Davian is rescued by, at this point we assume is Brassel, but it's not, it's Musgrave. The first thing he does is go after Julia. Like, he was not kidding. Like, he was not like, just like, I'm gonna be intimidating and, bad guy. He like literally gets on the chopper and the first thing he does is get on the phone and say, take his girl. Like he was not playing around. So that sets Ethan immediately more running, more car driving, because he has to go from that bridge scene to the hospital to save Julia, because
and again, all these things do matter and it helps touch. He gets surrounded by IMF agents, and he can't outrun them all, and one of them just shoots him with a trank, So again, like a nice little touch to not. He is a superhero, but again, he is not invulnerable.
One of the little tells here, and when I first saw the movie, it didn't register with me. Maybe I can't remember if I knew Billy Kudrup was going to be if I spotted that ahead of time. But one of the things that stood out to me here, knowing that Billy Kudrup was the traitor, was when he's like, I intercepted the call with Davian. I know he wants you to get the rabbit's foot, so he helps him escape by using the lip reading thing that comes back from the first part. And Ethan's even in a Hannibal Lecter mask, which is fun when you see Lawrence Fishburne with him, given the Hannibal series that comes up later. And the whole Chesapeake Bay action sequence we just saw, and Hannibal's the Chesapeake Ripper. None of this means anything, except it's just fun for Hannibal fans. Anyway, but yeah, as soon as I heard that this time, it's like, oh, he just intercepted a call from Davian? That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Ethan has 48 hours to get the rabbit's foot from Shanghai it's really funny because it's a very similar building sequence you would assume to the 1 and 2, but what they focus on is the fulcrum stunt that lands him on the roof, and we don't see anything that goes on inside the building, which is brilliant.
It's great. It's really funny. It's a funny way to do it. It gives you a little character moment for Zen and Declan that suddenly, again in those little fun humanizing moments, is interrupted by Ethan yelling, "Look up, look up, look up!" Like, it's like screaming.
And it totally is a different way of jumping out of a building than the second movie, because he jumps out too low in this movie and gets all fucked up with his chute. And
gets yanked in. He smashes into an office, then gets yanked and can't stop it. Like, he's like just being he's not like super cool in that moment, because the parachute is just yanking him back out of a building, and
leads to a big car chase in Shanghai down below. And we've got this rabbit's foot now, which has a giant biohazard symbol on it. So now you're wondering if it's like a disease.
Right.
It's biological warfare. Gives us a little clue as to what the rabbit's foot might be. And it's funny. It is funny when, because he says he has 48 hours. Obviously, it takes time to get your shit together, your disguise on, and go to Shanghai. But when he finally, because he's got like the 20 hours in Mission Impossible 2 countdown, he's not wearing a watch with anything that says 48 hours. So when he says, we've got 2 hours to do this, guys, I'm like, oh, really? Like, I didn't know I didn't know where they were in time-wise. So, but they get it done.
We shouldn't have had that long dinner.
We shouldn't have also argued about some of the things we argued about, because he does it with a few seconds to spare. He gets the rabbit's foot, and then he bids farewell to his team. Literally, they leave. They leave him. They go back home. It was an interesting beat where it's like, I do have to do this alone, but none of them are like standing by somewhere else.
Right.
So they all go back home.
Get grabbed by Brassel.
Get grabbed by Brassel in the big moment that's supposed to make you really solidify the fact that he's the bad guy. Mm-hmm. Right before Musgrave sits down in front of Tom Cruise. And then we go back to the opening scene. We finally get the full payout of that. And where were you at, Eric, when this finally happened? Did you think something was up? Did you think he killed Julia? I can't remember where I landed when I first saw this.
I didn't think he killed Julia. Like, I just feel like if Julia was gonna die, which would be crazy, but also, like, she would be able to speak in that scene. You know? It's like having her be like,
having her killed like that. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, just story-wise, like, that's not a way that character would go. But Tom Cruise, great actor. Like, he's a good actor, dude. Like, he's just really great at selling he thinks he's watched Julia die in front of him, and he's given up. And then comes Musgrave, who's just like, psych. And we had to do that because
this is the girl from Saw 3.
Well, and it makes sense why they did it too.
Mm-hmm.
He basically, because they had to get, there was no way to guarantee that they had the real rabbit's foot, because it's not something they can open.
Right.
To check, which again makes me to believe it is a biological agent. So they had to put him through that whole awful crucible just to see if he would confess that he gave them the wrong, a fake rabbit's foot.
Right.
And he didn't break, and he still didn't break. So they're like, okay, it's real. So it was all just pure psychological torture. And then, oh man, sort of sprinting to the finish here, such a great running action sequence leading into just amazing, really well-crafted, emotional scenes involving Ethan and Julia, and him rescuing her, and her very quickly having to come to terms with not knowing what's going on, but realizing that he's going to kill himself, and she has to bring him back, but also shoot people. And it's so well done, and she's so good that
it's so well done. And again, it's selling the reality of it. Him, telling her how to do the gun. Very simple. Very simple.
It's like the guy who's now the IMF trainer has to do the fastest training in the world for the person he loves the most in the world, just so that he cannot die from a brain explosion, and she can protect herself when the goons come running in.
And which also then means the movie does something a bit subversive, which is, yes, Ethan just had a fight to the death with Owen Davian, who dies a big death getting hit by a car. But the final villain, the traitorous Musgrave, gets taken out by Julia. Now, Ethan's literally dead while that happens.
Yeah.
Which is, again, just an unusual sort of way it goes there.
And by the time he wakes up and pulls his gun out to, like, protect her, she's done all the work.
Which is a very fun and funny beat that, he comes back to life, gun ready.
It's great because it obviously there's such a, we've spent 100 years of movies having damsels in distress.
Right.
So, yes, she's taken, yes, she's kidnapped and helpless, but in this final scene, she gets to be proactive and she gets to be the hero, and it gets to make her captivity more worthwhile and more substantial. And why she's there and what she's done for herself and for Ethan in this moment. And so, again, you look for these subversions on the tradition and the cliches, and it worked super well.
Yep.
Then she's just fully brought into the fold. We'll talk about that a little more in the next movie, and what they did to Julia going forward, which was frustrating at first, but then it made more sense, especially by the last movie that came out, Fallout. So, given how invested we became in her in this movie and their relationship. And so while it didn't quite go the way we wanted it to go, but it's understandable. And they didn't drop it completely. So anyway.
Yes. The final scene of the movie is a cheesy one as far as like them walking away together with everyone cheering behind them. But I'll allow
and she's like, next time you drive. Freeze frame.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's such a good movie. I will allow their cheesy final seconds of it because it's so well done.
Well, and it works a lot better than the cheesy closing moments of 2.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah. My favorite fun fact behind the scenes of this movie, by the way, Matt, is easily the fact that Dermot Mulroney performed cello with the orchestra for this film.
Oh, well, you know. Okay.
He starred in The Family Stone, scored by Michael Giacchino, and revealed to him he played cello his whole life growing up. And they joked about, I want to play music in a movie with you. And Michael Giacchino came through and said, you'll play cello for Mission Impossible 3. You got the sweet sounds of Dermot Mulroney.
Oh, are there any other sounds for Dermot Mulroney? Oh. Remember how much I was down on the possible casting of Dermot Mulroney as Rockford?
Oh, I do. I remember.
Dirty, disgusting Dermot Mulroney.
But yeah.
He's no Dylan McDermott. He is, in fact, Dermot Mulroney.
This movie, the 6-year gap, which is crazy for a big franchise like this. It's the longest one, although there's still going to be one more big one with the next movie. It was already 4 years was already a lot between 1 and 2. 6 years is crazy. But one of the biggest reasons this took 6 years is it kept changing directors, and in a much bigger way than like Oliver Stone, even though Oliver Stone was with 2 for a while with like a script. But David Fincher was supposed to direct this movie, and even had started casting people.
Yeah, I read that.
And I had forgotten about that. I had forgotten he cast. I believe he cast Kenneth Branagh as the bad guy, and Carrie-Anne Moss was going to be like a new IMF agent / love interest for Ethan. He left. Joe Carnahan took over, and I think it was Carnahan who cast Scarlett Johansson in the story. This movie's story is completely different from any of the versions Fincher and Carnahan are working on. It sounds like one of the only kind of echoes is that Scarlett Johansson would have played a young agent trained by Ethan. So like Lindsay's your echo of that idea. Yeah, of that idea. But yeah, so Fincher was with it, left it. They were very close to filming if they cast that many people with Carnahan taking over. But that fell apart. Carnahan, there's crazy quotes about Carnahan's story. First of all, Fincher, guess what? It was going to be darker, Matt. Not shockingly. And then Carnahan was like, first of all, there's stuff about like, it's going to be more of a punk rock version, but also it's supposed to be, this is quote, a story that involved the privatization of the military and Africa with a villain inspired by Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh. So I don't know.
Well, then he went on to do the A-Team, and it was all about the privatization of the military.
And apparently there's even like action sequences in A-Team that were like kind of what he would have done with Mission Impossible.
Well, remember A-Team is as a unit, as a premise, is very Mission Impossible anyway.
Yeah.
That was the whole point, is that they did crazy missions.
Yeah.
Crazy missions. But we also already went during our Fast and the Furious talk, spoke about how Fast and the Furious became the A-Team franchise that the A-Team franchise never became. And again, we're still talking about Mission Impossible stuff. So Fast and Furious is very Mission Impossible anyway, in its own right, just with like a group of people who pull off incredible feats and heights that shouldn't be able to be done. But they do it with cars. So, all right.
Wait, let me throw out a couple more fun facts.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that it vexes me that this movie is 71 on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, Roger Ebert did not like this movie. He said it was just loud and brainless, and I was like, well, whatever.
Also, but that's the other thing I wanted to mention about this movie is that the other thing, the elephant in the room at the time was Tom Cruise's reputation. And yeah, this movie did make like 150 million less than 2. And this movie was at a time, by the time it got actually made, not in the early years of trying to make it, but by 2006, things were very strained with Paramount and Cruise, and they'd been doing movies together since Top Gun. He'd done most of his big movies with Paramount, not all, but a lot. But things were strained between them. And a lot of it, apparently, there was just all the stuff in the press. You were coming off of the couch jumping incident.
Yeah, the Katie Holmes relationship that nobody bought into after he'd spent a few years auditioning other wives, like seeking out other potential like power couple females. I think Sofia Vergara was one of them. There are actresses out there who talked about how they were sort of they were almost tried to be groomed by Tom Cruise to be his next, the next female to be by his side on the red carpet.
Yeah. And so we had that, and then we had a lot more negative stuff coming up about Scientology. And right before this movie opened, obviously this wouldn't affect the production, but right before this movie opened was the Trapped in the Closet episode of South Park.
That Tom Cruise supposedly demanded they not air a rerun of.
Viacom, because again, we're dealing with Comedy Central, and so it's all connected to Paramount and Viacom. So yeah, there was a lot of like stuff around this movie that wasn't the movie itself. Also, there was a big fight over the budget. Again, and if some of the rumors are that all this had to do with Paramount being concerned about Cruise's reputation. So Cruise took a much smaller profit participation on this movie to help cut the budget. Because apparently he made $70 million on part 2.
Whoa!
Because he had such a big piece of the back end.
And he was a producer, yeah. So
he took a lot less on this movie so that Paramount would make more just to get it done. The thing I will say about this movie is they wrapped it a day under schedule and under budget, which never happens for big movies, especially not Mission Impossible movies. So, Abrams, we kind of skipped over this was Abrams' first movie.
His first feature film, yes.
Feature film. He directed 2 of the best pilots ever, Alias and Lost, and he directed a lot of other episodes. Like Felicity was the first time he was directing episodes of TV, but this is a giant project to give a first-time feature director. You could wonder, after coming off of Palma and Woo, was it Cruise wanting to exert more control? Because Abrams, at this point as a feature director, would not have the power of those guys, nor a Fincher. After apparently they had that didn't obviously work well if Fincher left, but they obviously got along really well. Abrams made a great movie, and Bad Robot has produced all the movies since. That this is the beginning of the Bad Robot era of Mission Impossible, which has continued to this day. So it all worked out, Matt.
It does. Just like the world will all work out, right, Eric?
Yeah,
right? Tell me. Please tell me.
The only other thing I want to say is, because there's no way you can't talk about the series without the evolution of Tom Cruise stunts. We're still at the point where it's a lot of like, he's doing his own stunts, and he's doing crazy stunts that stuntmen are usually the only ones who do. It's just that they're inside soundstage. Like, he's still doing crazy jumps within sound stages. Like when he's jumping out.
And it's a little bit of a step back considering he did do the rock climbing in the second
That's
movie.
True.
So that was a big outdoor thing. So that they did not fake with green screen or anything like that.
The couple things that but for instance, it's really him getting he really was blown off his feet. Obviously, they
but right, he wasn't on a bridge due to
right. And then he did at the time, Matt. And again, it shows you all these things are crazy, and all these things would make us shit our pants. It's just because where the series goes, we know that he's going to do insane things. But I remember at the time they made a big deal out of the fact, because again, you or I wouldn't want to do it. That it's him hanging out of the car shooting in Shanghai, high speed car that he's leaning completely with his back almost on the street. Doing that himself, because again, a movie star usually wouldn't do that move. But
right.
But things are about to escalate considerably with the next movie.
Alrighty. Well, you have to wait till next week for the escalation, where Mission Impossible 4 Ghost Protocol.
Shut